Mr. Abby Adiyemi is going to be covering the forecast on the show. He's also our senior tech. Morning, Abby. Good morning, Mr. Darren Marash. Behind the controls, Darren is our YouTube producer. You can watch the show streaming live there, and always the visual components that come with our pieces that you hear on the radio. So check it out. And there's Mr. Corey Funk. Corey will be on the air covering your commute, and he directs Information Radio. It's 2 minutes now to 6. National and international news is straight ahead, but right now to headlines from Manitoba. Here live is Heather Wells from our news center.
Good morning. Well, the province of Manitoba is asking Sobeys to drop property restrictions blocking rival grocery stores from opening. It comes after a new provincial law to curb the use of these real estate deals signed by grocers, barring competitors from setting up nearby. Restrictions were that they could only continue if they registered with the province, but Sobeys was the only company to do that. So we'll hear more about that story. And a woman in Souris is raising her 4th Pride flag today after her 3rd one was stolen. This after someone poured paint on the Souris Pride crosswalk last fall. Souris Mayor Dwayne Davison says this vandalism does not represent the community's true colors. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, I should mention there is a yellow level advisory for blowing snow, so this will make visibility difficult. And this is through southern Manitoba, including the Red River Valley, and the gusts could be northwesterly, north-northwest, up to 80 kilometers per hour. So that's something to pay attention to if you're traveling early today. On the show, in the first hour of the show, it could be yet another gold medal hockey game between Canada and the U.S. We'll take you to the Paralympic Games. In addition, we're going to hear more about what is happening on the program today with a couple of young Manitobans who hit Paris Fashion Week. So why did they go? What did they get from it? Stay tuned for that and more. But right now, World Report.
Our Dominique Fils-Aimé is a 2-time Juno-winning musician, and she's back with a new album called My World is the Sun. She's here to talk about the message her mother taught her, that peace isn't something you find, it's something you build, and how that idea shaped the music.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Oil prices are back up, hovering around $100 a barrel, and governments are adopting new measures to preserve their supplies.
Today I have decided to relax the requirements under the Fuel Quality Act when it comes to sulphur content on a temporary 60-day basis. This will see 100 million litres of fuel extra flow in Australia a month.
That's Australia's Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, announcing plans to ease fuel quality standards. New Zealand's government is considering restricting vehicle use, and China is imposing an immediate ban on refined fuel exports. All this as Iran intensifies its attacks on energy sites in and around the Persian Gulf. For more, let's go to the CBC's David Common, who is in Amman, Jordan. David, help us understand the scope here. Just how many oil industry targets are in Iran's sights?
A lot is the short answer. At least 13 ships have been hit in or near the Strait of Hormuz, including 3 in the overnight hours, everything from oil tankers to cargo vessels. Many shipping companies are now just bypassing the Strait of Hormuz, but that means the oil in the Gulf, about 20% of the world's supply, is barely getting out. And by at least trying to lay sea mines in the narrow channel and strike at oil export depots in the Gulf, Iran is mounting a longer-term defense, particularly with sea mines. These can't just be removed in a couple of hours. That is why we are seeing gas prices going up in Canada, the U.S., globally. Why, when North America is so far away? Because oil flows to money. If there is a greater unfilled need in Asia, for instance, they will pay more for the oil, and that drives up the overall cost. It's why dozens of nations released 400 million barrels from reserves, but that is an emergency switch. It has just blunted the increases that we've seen. Final point, Iran's oil can't get out either because of what it's doing. This is like a last stand.
So, David, we often hear oil being discussed as a backdrop for the motivations to go to war. But in this case, It's really more of a weapon.
Absolutely. Iran's strategy here may be looking at what will force President Trump's hand. We know his supporters are deeply skeptical of foreign wars, but virtually all Americans are sensitive to gas prices, and they're seeing those prices going up. So seizing the Strait of Hormuz, it makes it much more sensitive for the U.S. president. Some are already urging him to declare victory and walk away. But even if the U.S. stops, will Iran? It's not a guarantee.
David Common in Amman for us. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
The heart of Beirut is under fire this morning. An Israeli drone strike has killed at least 8 people along the city's popular seafront. The missiles hit a vehicle in an area where hundreds of displaced families have been sleeping in tents. This is the third time Israeli forces have struck central Beirut since the conflict began. Lebanese health officials say across the country, more than 630 people have died. The Carney government set to introduce new legislation today that will give law enforcement more power to intercept communications and seize data. It's tried and failed to pass a similar bill before, but intelligence agencies say they need these new tools to work with other foreign surveillance groups on cross-border security. Well, let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, why is this legislation, why has it been so controversial?
John, when you're giving law enforcement and intelligence agencies access to data without requiring a warrant from a judge that would set specific parameters about how that data can be used, well, no surprise, that doesn't go over very well with civil liberties watchdogs, who worry that if left unchecked, agents could engage in all sorts of snooping around, reading Canadians' mail, tracking data from the tourism and hospitality sector related to where people travel, stay, even monitoring what healthcare services people are using, on top of things like tapping into cell phones, email, or other online activities, and then potentially sharing this information with foreign intelligence agencies to crack down on cross-border organized crime or terrorism. On the other hand, police services and the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service say their work is falling behind other Five Eyes intelligence partners because there are too many barriers to accessing data that they feel they need for criminal and national security investigations. If law enforcement here can't keep up, that threatens public safety. Fixing this, police say, is urgent. So it's a question between finding the right balance between Big Brother and big security risks for Canadians if officers aren't on top of the latest technology and surveillance practices.
All right, Janice, though, this isn't the government's first attempt to do this.
No. Lawful access powers were part of the very first bill the Carney government introduced last spring. But the opposition's concerns over these measures in particular made it clear that that border bill could not get through the minority parliament as written. It's since been carved in two. When this do-over is introduced in the House today, we'll see if it's going to find enough support to pass.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Today is the day the Trump administration has to report on its plan to refund billions of dollars in tariffs. Last month, you recall, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs were illegal. By then, the U.S. had already collected more than $160 billion on imported goods, and companies now want that money back. All this comes as the U.S. considers ways to impose new tariffs. Trump's team is investigating manufacturing in other countries, including China, the EU, and India. It's looking for evidence that government support is giving their companies an unfair advantage over U.S. firms. Several remote First Nations in northwest Ontario are partnering with the province's air ambulance service to fix a long-standing gap in emergency care. Orange is providing new medical vehicles and specialized training, but the communities will take the lead on the ground. The CBC's Sarah Law has details.
Sometimes the thing falls apart, the one that we use, and sometimes it doesn't want to start.
Eddie Mikas is a band counselor in Kiwewan First Nation, a remote OG Cree community near the Ontario-Manitoba border. He's describing the vehicle they use to either bring people to the nursing station or to the airport for medical evacuations. Mikas says he's excited to replace it.
I'm very proud of getting this because it's something that we need.
Kiwewan is one of 8 First Nations in the region that's getting a heavy-duty truck with a medical pod on the back. It's part of the Emergency First Response Team program, or EFRT, that's being led by communities in partnership with Orange.
It's something that I think most Ontarians probably take for granted every day.
That's Jeffrey Gunner, the EFRT's director. The member of Moose Cree First Nation says many remote communities are managing emergencies with few resources.
They throw the person that has a broken leg, whatever, into the back of a van, no attendant.
The EFRT is hoped to change that. Alicia Makala is a paramedic in Deer Lake First Nation. She says having a proper vehicle and people trained to use it is essential.
It saves so much time in those very critical moments.
The trucks are being sent to communities on seasonal ice roads, but it's a race against the clock to deliver them by spring. Sarah Law, CBC News, Thunder Bay, Ontario.
A judge in Newfoundland and Labrador is making headlines for weighing in on the national debate over bail reform. He made some pointed comments this week as he granted bail to someone police call a prolific offender. The judge is receiving praise from advocates, but the victims sitting in his courtroom are less than impressed. Brian Cook has the story.
I was totally shocked.
Cassie Kellaway was in the courtroom on Tuesday when a judge granted bail to the man accused of burglarizing her family home. 34-year-old Justin King has been dubbed a prolific offender by the RCMP, currently facing 17 charges related to 4 break-and-enters in rural Newfoundland. Kellaway has become a vocal advocate for bail reform, fighting to keep King behind bars.
More people out there like Justin King are being given the same chances over and over and over again. And it needs to stop because people are living in fear.
In his decision, Judge Andrew Wadden called phrases such as jail, not bail, inflammatory rhetoric. Wadden says there are more people in pretrial custody than ever before, yet calls for bail reform only grow louder. Catherine Latimer, Executive Director of the John Howard Society of Canada, was happy to hear Wadden's comments.
The real problems in the bail system is that it's enormously overused.
Latimer says 48% of Canadian inmates are on remand and have yet to face trial. That's compared to about 25% in the United States. She says those numbers will only go up if the Liberals' bail reform legislation, currently before the Senate, comes into effect.
There's just a real disconnect between what we know about the bail system and what Bill C-14 is actually going to do.
Latimer says the bill has the potential to make communities less safe by criminalizing people before they can prove their innocence. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcuso. Welcome to Thursday. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. Thanks for being with us. It's going to be blustery today, and we are expecting some snow. Forecast in a moment. This hour on the show, a probe research poll that's brand new found that some Manitoba businesses are in cautiously optimistic headspace to start the year. We're going to find out more about that as we look at the survey's findings. Also, it could be another gold medal hockey game at the Paralympic Games for Canada and the United States. We'll tee that up for you. And the spat between Anthropic and President Donald Trump keeps escalating after the company wanted to restrict the U.S. government from using its AI for mass surveillance in autonomous weapons. So where does this leave us in Canada, whether we use that AI or not? Our tech columnist, Francis Sims, who's always really good on helping to navigate these issues, is going to be here with more on the impact on our country. So stay tuned. He'll be here just before 7. Heather Wells is here right now to update news stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the Manitoba government says it is considering banning paid plasma clinics after a CBC investigation revealed 2 people recently died months apart after donating plasma in Winnipeg. Health Canada says the company Grifols reported 2 different fatal adverse reactions. Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says all options are on the table. The head of the Manitoba Nurses Union is thrilled about the province's latest move to legislate nurse-patient ratios. Darlene Jackson warns it will take time to accomplish, but she believes it will ease the nursing shortage. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we've got some spring-like volatile weather today, Abby Adeyemi.
Yes, Marcy, blowing snow advisory in effect for a large portion of southern Manitoba today. We're talking about regions around Steinbach and all the way tracking it towards the Killarney, Parliament end of the southern part of the province today. No warnings in effect for the north, but we're expecting these powerful northwesterly winds bringing about 80 kilometers an hour of wind with fresh snow that's going to be creating near zero visibility in a lot of regions around the south. Winnipeg is also going to be feeling that blowing snow coming our way. For Winnipeg right now, minus 11 at the Forks and also similar conditions at the airport. Cloudy morning. We'll see temperatures hover near minus 10 before we get to minus 2, though. Snow and blowing snow will begin around the noon period, and we're expecting about 2 to 4 centimeters of fresh snow on the ground once the system comes through. And you know what that means? Fresh snow on the ground during your commute home and even after your lunch break period, you will be feeling some visibility conditions on the highway, so take it easy. And the winds are going to be picking up to about 60 later in the evening, so those blowing snow conditions will definitely spread into the overnight period. But up north, not as cold as we've been getting. We still have wind chills in the valleys of minus 41s up north with periods of snow expected there. But the story today is the southern part of the province. We're expecting blowing snow from the noon period.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, what's up on the commute so far?
So far, pretty quiet. I am looking at Manitoba 501. There's one little patch of the Western Highway 1 between Portage La Prairie and Austin that shows covered conditions right now. So I'm curious if that may be a little more slippery on that part if you are driving that today. Other than that, though, if you do see anything else going on, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, it certainly has been a tumultuous year of tariff talk, and some Manitoba businesses feel, as I mentioned, quote, cautiously optimistic about the year ahead. Now, we're saying some because this was one of the key findings of the 2026 Manitoba Business Leaders Survey that was released yesterday. CBC can't confirm that the report, though, of course, represents the views of business leaders across all industries in this province. But the survey did find that some business owners are less worried about tariffs and more worried right now about artificial intelligence. Curtis Brown is a partner in Probe Research who conducted the survey, and to talk more about it, he spoke with CBC's Faith Fundal.
Were you surprised to see that some business owners are feeling optimistic compared to last year?
Not particularly surprised. I think, when we look at the survey, I really get a strong sense that a lot of, businesses, sort of feel the worst of the storm that we're facing is passing. I mean, we're certainly, dealing with deep uncertainty and all the things happening in the world and that sort of thing. But I think if you go back to a year ago, things were really, really uncertain with tariffs and how that was going to affect Canada and how that was going to affect Manitoba and individual businesses. And, after going through the last year, maybe it hasn't been quite as rough for the broader business community as we thought. And so, one of the questions that we've asked doing the survey for, over 20 years is, do you think you're going to be better off, worse off, or about the same as you are today? And, we saw a massive spike in the number of people last year who said, I'm going to be worse off. And now it's back down to kind of a normal level around about 16%, which is what we've usually what's typically been, over the last few years. But last year was just such an anomaly, I think, because businesses were really, potentially thinking that they're going to be in a difficult spot.
And the U.S. president was also, it was the beginning of all of his threats that he employed and then stepped back in various ways.
Yeah, it seemed to change by the day. And I mean, I think that was also probably part of the uncertainty. It has been part of the uncertainty is, what exactly is going to happen. It's big tariffs, then it's not, then it's on this product, then it's not. And it's kind of been all over the place. And so I think, at the time it looked like it was going to be, a lot of things and, pretty steep tariffs. I mean, it's still a world of uncertainty with, the free trade negotiations are going to be happening this year, and who knows what things are going to look like after that's done.
So it seems like folks have traded tariffs with artificial intelligence, now cited as a cause for concern. What is it about AI and the connection to businesses did the survey find?
Well, it's a little bit that. I think, yeah, with artificial intelligence, I mean, that is one of the things that, more businesses are raising as an issue or something that they think about. It only went from about 3% last year to 10% this year. And it's not sort of top of mind, but it's something I think that's definitely on more businesses' radar just because it is being adopted and integrated so quickly. And, people are concerned about, how are they going to use that in their workplace? Are their competitors doing it? Is it making them more efficient? That kind of thing. We really find the biggest preoccupation for businesses overall, and it's somewhat related to tariffs, I mean, indirectly, but, it's something that I think no matter what kind of business you own or what sector of the economy you're in, and by the way, this survey is representative of every business and, sector in Manitoba. It's the operating costs. It's the cost of goods. It's the cost of doing business. That's the thing that's been really the overriding concern. And it has been for the last few years. It was certainly a lot more when inflation was really bad, kind of coming right out of the pandemic. But it's still, high costs are, whether that's salaries, whether that's items people sell. Those are the things that, I think are keeping business owners and managers up at night.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because when we talked about tariffs, U.S. President Donald Trump was sort of the person behind them. And then when it comes to artificial intelligence, there doesn't seem to be the one person or entity that could be at play here, right? Is there anything in your survey that sort of unpacks that part of it?
Yeah, well, we've been looking for a few years at how businesses are adopting AI and also what kind of effect they think that's going to have on their hiring. And one of the things that we found is, businesses, the sort of rate of adoption is not really increasing that much, which did surprise me a bit. I would have thought that maybe, some businesses are adopting it a bit more, but I think there's lots of businesses where, maybe AI is less of an issue and maybe it's more broader automation or, other sorts of things, or maybe, where some of that adoption is happening. And then the other thing I thought that was kind of interesting is that the proportion of businesses who expect that they're going to hire less people in the future, they're going to decrease their workforce in some way, that's actually been going down a little bit. And you would think that, certainly in some industries, there's going to be more potential for job losses if AI can do more of these tasks. And based on what Manitoba businesses are telling us, that's not necessarily the case. More and more are just thinking that, their hiring level, their employee count, whatever you want to call it, is going to just stay the same even as they start to adopt AI into their practices.
And then finding skilled workers is also seems to be there's been a change in this as well, right?
Yeah, and that's something that, for over the years, we've often found that, what's happened in the past is that businesses have a harder time finding skilled workers and also are more likely to say that they're going to have a larger staff or expect to hire or expand when things are going fairly well, when the economy is hot, and then when it goes down, when things are not going so well, those numbers start to drop. And what we've seen, and we've seen this pretty persistently over the last few years, is that fewer companies are expecting to have larger staff in 12 months. That number has been going down pretty steadily since basically the time of the pandemic over the last 5 years. And then also, the number of companies who say that they're having a hard time finding skilled workers. In the mid-2000s, that was, something that a lot of companies had trouble finding during and coming right out of the pandemic. That was also something that we saw a lot of businesses were having issues with. And now it's going down to a pretty low level. So, I mean, in some ways, that kind of tells me a couple things potentially. One, if we're having any kind of recovery or things are kind of starting to get better in any way, and I don't think they necessarily are, it's fairly hollow for businesses, and I think businesses are taking a bit of a wait-and-see attitude in terms of, whether they hire. And I would imagine as well that AI is and just technology is also playing a part in that as well. If businesses are potentially looking to, invest more in that, and they're not necessarily going to be hiring more people to do particular jobs, that's also something I think that we may be seeing as well.
What do the folks say about how confident they are in the Prime Minister, Mark Carney's approach to all of this?
Yeah, so that's another really big finding, I think, from this is that, when we asked this last year, Mark Carney, I think, was just about to become the Prime Minister, and Justin Trudeau was on the way out. Businesses in Manitoba were not feeling especially confident about the job that the federal Liberal government was doing when it came to the economy, and also especially dealing with trade and Trump and all that. that's really shifted. I think there seems to be pretty broad confidence, and we see this with the public as well. Broad confidence in Mark Carney that he's kind of on it. He's projecting some degree of stability and reassurance for folks, and so that's something that we're really seeing kind of in a strong way, both among business leaders and the public this year. And at this time last year, kind of before the federal election, there was a higher proportion of people who kind of felt that maybe, if Pierre Poilievre was the prime minister and the Conservatives were in power, they would, be doing a good job dealing with the economy, dealing with Trump, dealing with the U.S. And that number has slipped for them a bit, which I think, you also extrapolate this maybe nationally, might also have something to do with how Poilievre is really talking more about kind of what he would do to manage that relationship and also broaden trade with other countries, which is also something that we're seeing that both businesses and the public are actually very aligned on. They want to see more trade with China, for instance. They're relatively confident that whatever we lose in terms of trade with the U.S. could be made up by dealing with other countries, whether that's Europe or in Asia or different places like that.
That's Curtis Brown in conversation with CBC's Faith Fundal. Curtis is a partner with Probe Research and talking about the 2026 Manitoba Business Leaders Survey, which was just released yesterday.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise.
All
CBC
right,
News.
let's talk Paralympic Games here on CBC. There's just a few days left at the Milano Cortina Paralympic Winter Games, and a lot of medals still up for grabs for Team Canada. If you're checking on the sole athlete at the Games for Manitoba, I was just looking on Jesse Pajinski's results. Para cross-country skier so far placed 11th in the men's 10K interval start and 15th at the Sprint Classic. Go, Jesse, go. Now, this next section of the Games, as they get ready to wrap, includes a shot at a gold medal, which will be a redemption gold medal in para hockey. And this is because we're once again going to see Canada and the U.S. To bring us up to speed on that match, we have Claire Buchanan with us. She has represented Canada for 11 seasons on the women's para hockey team. Good morning.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So first of all, let's look at the results. So you've been keeping tabs this morning, day 6 action. Has Canada been able to add to its medal haul?
Not just yet. The first run of the women's giant slalom was earlier this morning. The second run will be happening here in a few minutes. We had 18-year-old Florence Carrier made her Paralympic debut. So that's in itself is really exciting to see for Canadians. She had a solid first run. Molly Jepson was probably our best bet at a medal today, but she had to bow out of the Paralympics due to an injury. So no medals to come probably today, but tomorrow we have the men's giant slalom, and Kurt Oatway is looking to make a redemption after disqualifying. And Kalle Eriksson, visually impaired athlete, made his Paralympic debut, and he's already got 2 medals. So I look to those two to bring in some medals tomorrow for Canada.
We're on our way to a milestone when it comes to the overall medal count. Is that right?
Yes. So we have come pretty close to winning our 200th Paralympic medal. So I think that we can see that happen tomorrow, and I think Kalle Eriksson or Kurt Oatway is going to be one of those two bringing it in.
And that would make Canada, I understand, the 4th country to reach that mark. So that's the milestone. This weekend, there's obviously going to be medals as well. So I mentioned the para hockey final and then curling's as well coming up. What are you thinking about those matches?
Absolutely. Canada plays on Friday against China to make it to the gold medal game in para hockey. And wheelchair curling, our wheelchair curling mixed team is still undefeated in group play, and they beat the 2-time Paralympic champions, China, in that group play. They have a chance today to finish group play undefeated. They play Korea and USA. On the other side, in Nordic, we have Natalie Wilkie. We already know that she has a gold, silver, and bronze for Canada, making it her 10th Paralympic medal. She can bring in more medals as well, as much as 3 more medals for Canada. And also Mark Arend's in Nordic as well, has claimed his 14th Paralympic medal. And again, he can also bring in 3 more medals for Canada. So I think we're going to see a lot more medals in these final few days.
Let's move away from the action and into the conditions. We've got a clip actually we're going to play here. Scott Reguera and I were talking about this this week in just sports overall, because there's some talk about making the Paralympic Games happen before the Olympics. They've been after the Olympic Games, right? The second big competition. But this is skier Kurt Otway, who you've already mentioned, after one of his runs on Monday.
These games need to be held a month earlier. Every year it's soft, it's slush, it's spring skiing, and that's not really real ski racing.
So he's not just talking about, Paralympics going first. He's also saying as well, there's 2 storylines here. The second storyline is what he alluded to, that everything be pushed maybe into January, that the games are earlier. It's too slushy. Is there appetite for this, do you think?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I think that athletes are feeling that this needs to happen actually really urgently and soon. So we're not only seeing bad conditions that athletes aren't used to skiing in. They spend a whole winter skiing in actual winter conditions, and then they come to the Paralympics, and like Kurt said, we're in springtime, and they're skiing in springtime. And not only is that not good for conditions of the sport itself, it's really dangerous for these athletes, and we saw that at the Olympics as well.
Before you go this morning, there's always stories that happen outside of the field of sport. Do you have a favorite moment so far that you've seen?
I have loved seeing that they're actually friends and family being able to celebrate with the athletes at these Olympics and Paralympics, because 4 years ago, we didn't have any fans. Friends and family weren't allowed to come. So to see full crowds cheering on para-athletes and Paralympic sport, and then getting to see these athletes celebrate with their friends and family, that's really been the highlight for me.
Yeah, we think we're so far removed from the pandemic, and then you remind yourself. All right, thanks very much, Claire. Enjoy the rest of the games. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Live on CBC's Information Radio, Claire Buchanan, a part of CBC's coverage team for the games. If you have CBC Gem, really easy to navigate the rest of the action through this weekend. As we mentioned, para hockey and para curling, the finals are going this weekend. Coming up, we have business news. We'll check in with Crystal Ramlicam, what's going on. I want to mention in traffic, just check 511 before you head out. We're going to have a day where we get snow and winds are going to increase. So the conditions are going to change quickly, and that's going to affect visibility. You might also just want to pay attention to later today and what you have planned to do later today, because once the winds start really gusting, then there could be some challenges for sure. We do have a yellow level advisory, blowing snow for the Red River Valley, and that means winds gusting up to 80. If you see anything, though, up to 6:30 here that you want to pass along early, Corey is who you should call on the commuter line, and that is 788-3093. Your CBC News from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -11. The calm before the storm. That wind is going to pick up, creating snow and blowing snow in Winnipeg. And as Marcy mentioned, that blowing snow advisory for the southern part of the province, south of the Trans-Canada, all the way from western Manitoba across to the east side of the province. And so that is throughout the day. But in Winnipeg today, we will see strong winds, blowing snow, and -2 as our high. Manitoba's health minister is considering banning paid plasma clinics. 2 people recently died months apart after giving plasma at Grifols in Winnipeg, a for-profit clinic. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says access to plasma is important for Canadians, but public safety has to be the top priority.
We have to be willing to make a decision whether it's banning paid plasma or putting in other mechanisms to protect the public. We want to make sure that all options are available to us so that when the investigation is concluded, we can use the findings of that investigation to make the right decision that keeps Manitobans safe.
Health Canada is reviewing the adverse reaction reports to find out why the people died. In a statement, Grifols says it didn't have a reason to believe giving plasma was linked to their deaths. The head of the Manitoba Nurses Union says the government's latest move to legislate nurse-patient ratios could solve the nursing shortage. But Darlene Jackson says it will take time to implement targets. Jackson says a committee turned over recommendations last December to the health minister for nurse-patient ratios in each health facility or unit in the province.
When you look at an acute medical unit, let's say at St. Boniface or Health Sciences Centre, the types of patients and the acuity of the patients you're caring with in those two facilities may be quite different than a medical unit in the rural areas. So there may be a difference in numbers.
Jackson believes nurses who have quit will want to return to work once they have a controlled environment with reasonable patient loads. Manitoba is down to one grocery giant that still bars competitors from opening nearby. This after the province curbed the use of real estate deals known as restrictive covenants. But the province is now asking that one company to reconsider. Public Service Minister Mintu Sandhu is asking Sobeys to remove its property controls voluntarily.
I'm a reasonable minister and my government is a reasonable government, and what we want to give a Sobeys another chance to look at those property controls and to see if they're willing to take those property controls off.
Last year, the province passed a law preventing grocers from holding these real estate deals unless they were registered in time, and Sobeys was the only company to do it. The new law also lets the province challenge the real estate deals through the municipal board if it argues they're against the public interest. That is what the government is planning here. Well, oil prices are surging again today, with Brent crude surpassing $100 U.S. a barrel before retreating slightly. The U.S. benchmark with Texas crude hit $94 before dropping a bit. Iranian attacks on shipping routes and oil infrastructure are driving up the prices. But when asked about oil prices last night, U.S. President Donald Trump says the situation in the Strait of Hormuz is stable.
The straits are in great shape. We've knocked out all of their boats. They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape. The main thing is we have to win this. They win it quickly, but win it. And there are many people, I'm just watching some of the news. Most people say it's already been won. It's just a question of when. When do we stop?
1/5 of the world's oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz, which leads from the Persian Gulf toward the Indian Ocean. The heart of Beirut is under fire this morning. And it's an Israeli drone striking and killing at least 8 people along the city's popular seafront. The missiles hit a vehicle in an area where hundreds of displaced families have been sleeping in tents. This is the third time the Israeli forces have struck central Beirut since the conflict began. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Souris woman is raising her 4th pride flag today after her 3rd one was stolen. Karen Kempe says it's frustrating and disappointing, but she says it motivates her to keep pushing for kindness and support for the 2S LGBTQ plus community. The theft comes after someone poured paint on the Souris Pride crosswalk last fall. Souris Mayor Dwayne Davison says the vandalism does not represent the community's true colors.
I don't feel that there's any reason for anybody to have any trepidation about putting a flag up. I'm saddened by the fact it kind of stains our image. We're a community of almost 2,000 people, and I would suggest there's a very, very small handful of people that are acting out like this.
For now, Kempe says she looks forward to celebrating Souris Pride in June. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into this blustery forecast, Abby.
Yeah, so folks in the Pembina Valley region, you will be waking up to a light snow already starting in some areas as we're tracking it towards the Portage La Prairie area and towards Morden Winkler, and then back all the way towards Steinberg this morning. We have this blowing snow advisory in effect for a large portion of that region. We don't have warnings in Winnipeg, but we will definitely feel that blowing snow coming our way because we're expecting about 2 to 4 centimeters. In the city right now, -11, cloudy. Morning temperatures will be hovering near -10 before it warms up to about -2. However, There's going to be snow in the forecast, and that snow will be blowing around. This should begin around the noon period with accumulations, as mentioned, between 2 to 4 centimeters, and it's going to be creating like a blustery condition and visibility issues within the city and even outside the city on major highways. So be prepared for that anytime after midday. For the Pembina Valley region, from Morden, Winkler towards Headingley and all the way to Port Perry this morning, we're seeing temperatures already around -6, -7. Light snow falling there this time. You warm up to about -1, but be prepared, snow coming your way. For the Westman region, Brandon at -11, warming up to -3. Snow and blowing snow also developing this afternoon. Dauphin towards the Roblin area, we're seeing clear skies, -15, highs of -4, a good chance of light snow later in the day. And then in the Interlake region around Gimli, we're tracking -19s and -20s at this time. A few clouds spotted there. You warm up to -2, blowing snow also expected this afternoon. And then up north, where we still have this freezing temperatures holding things down. No warnings there, but we still have wind chill close to -45. The Parfleet Flem -12, -13. Gillam is clear -23. Lynn Lake to Doodle Lake, we're looking at between -13 and -17. Light snow falling there. And for the Churchill area, we're seeing temperatures around -27. A sunny day ahead, high of -17, but there's a dangerous wind chill spotted in the Churchill area around -41. So we still have that split between the south and the north. Dangerous wind chills in the north now. Dangerous blowing snow coming to the south later in this afternoon.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into the commute. You hear anything yet, Corey?
Yeah, I just got a call from Dan on a bike. He said Southwest Rapid Transit. The bike lanes are nice and clear, but those sidewalks look a lot more slippery and icy. So just heads up there if you're in that area of town. Other than that, though, it's been pretty quiet. But if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Do you know what's in my head right now?
What's that?
This is for you and all the other parents out there that have little ones.
Okay.
Baby, baby, baby.
I heard you say that before, and I was like,
baby.
oh, yeah, I have a baby, and she's not sleeping great.
You could have sang that to her last night. No!
Yeah, I sure that would have been, if only that would have worked that easy.
Get back to your coffee.
Yeah, we'll do.
You got a big one in the control room.
Yeah.
A little bit of relatability for you parents that have not slept all night and you're up early listening to the morning show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcuso with Corey Funk and Abby Adiemi and Darren Marash on this Thursday morning where some active weather's on the way. All right, let's find out if business news is as active as the weather forecast. Crystal Ramlicken's here live. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy. Yeah, the business news is very active these days.
No kidding. So let's start with, of course, the Middle East once again, which is what we're all watching in the world. Canada now says it will support efforts to lower oil prices, which have skyrocketed since the war in the Middle East started. So what's the latest detail on what Canada said here?
Well, Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson says Canada will do its part as the International Energy Agency says it's going to release more oil from stockpiles to increase supply and ease prices. The organization represents dozens of countries, including Canada. Hodgson has not said what form the support would take, though. Canada is the only G7 nation that does not maintain a strategic reserve of oil. As a net exporter, it has no obligation to maintain a reserve. Rory Johnston is the founder of the Commodity Context newsletter, and even though the size of the release from the IEA is historic at 400 million barrels, he says it will do little to solve the problem.
We do not know the collective flow rate, that which is actually going to be more important than the ultimate volume at offsetting the shock in the Strait of Hormuz. When we think about the flow rate, let's say it's 2 or 3 million barrels a day, which would be a very steep rate of drawdown. For reference, what we saw out of the United States at the peak of 2022 was only about 1 million barrels a day. So if we got collectively 3 times that, it would still only be 3 million barrels a day of additional supply to offset the loss in Hormuz, which is nearer to 15 to 20 million barrels a day. So this is a very small stopgap.
Hodgson says Canada is in discussions with its energy industry to decide how to support the IEA. He says Canada's oil industry is already producing at capacity, but options include delaying downtime or asking refineries working with imported oil to switch to domestic alternatives to free up supply elsewhere.
Now, you have more in a story that you talked about yesterday about energy prices driving up the cost of airline tickets. Today, you're looking at including here in Canada.
Yes, that's right. So Air Transat is charging more for flights to Europe now. Several international airlines have added fuel surcharges, an extra fee to cover unforeseen oil costs as well. So Air New Zealand, Australia's Qantas Airways, and Scandinavian Airlines have all announced they are going to hike passenger fares. Japan Airlines says it has no plans to bring forward fuel surcharges before April 1st as it evaluates costs over a 2-month period. However, other international airlines such as Ryanair have confirmed they have a hedging system in place to temporarily lock fuel prices in. Now, WestJet says the war has already made operating flights more expensive, and it's likely further pricing adjustments may be needed. Air Canada says it's taking hedging positions for a small portion of its short-term needs, but declined to comment on future prices. And Porter says it's too soon to forecast how jet fuel prices will influence airfare, but says it is monitoring the situation closely. And the carrier notes it does not have a fuel hedging strategy, and it also does not operate flights to the Middle East either.
And finally, before you go this morning, some Swifties could be getting a refund from a recent concert tour.
Yes, that's right. So people who purchased tickets for Taylor Swift's concerts in Vancouver through a resale platform may be eligible for a refund. Consumer Protection BC has reached a deal with StubHub Canada after a complaint and investigation into the company's ticket sale practices. Under the agreement, StubHub will improve how it reveals ticketing information, including the face value of the ticket, its fees, service charges, and refund guarantees. Consumer Protection BC says those who bought tickets through the company for the 3 Vancouver concerts in 2024 and sat in certain sections may be eligible for a refund if their tickets did not disclose that their views were limited. Can you imagine paying that much for a Taylor Swift ticket and then you go and your view is like blocked or something?
Terrible. It would be terrible.
It would not be great. So the company has agreed to contact eligible purchasers directly by May 1st. And the StubHub agreement is timely given there are several large events coming to BC, including those FIFA World Cup matches, where you definitely don't want to have your view obstructed for that. You don't want to just listen to the game. You probably want to watch it.
No doubt. All right. Thanks a lot, Crystal. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystal Ramlakan is on our program every day with business news. There's this guy who shows up on Instagram. He buys the worst ticket to sporting events that he can find, and that's sort of his shtick. And he tries to find, what's the cheapest. And sometimes he's literally sitting behind like a concrete pillar, like you can see zero of whatever event you're at. So I guess if you do buy that ticket, though, and you find an empty seat, you've pretty much scored financially. It is 6:44 a.m. on 89.3. It's cloudy and minus 11, and there's a yellow level blowing snow advisory with gusty winds that are going to pick up through the day for the Red River Valley up to 80K, so it will impede your visibility. Very cold up north once again today in Winnipeg, 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, gusty winds, and then more snow tonight as well. Well, we have music from Fosia this morning. Hopefully, if you check her out on any of her upcoming engagements, you'll get a good seat and see her. She, of course, singer-songwriter from Carmen, Manitoba, and Juno nominee. This is from her latest album. The tune's called Lost My Mind in Paris.
One minute I was on your arm, you held the door for me. I was stepping in your car. We took the road down to Belleville Park, dancing in the dark, laughed till we cried. Imagine my surprise, baby, what I saw through my window last night. flashing on my ceiling. Rumors fly through the radio. They don't know what you did to me. I bet they'd be surprised. How could a man be so cruel? I lost my mind in Paris. Spent all night on the streets. Moment I saw you with her supply chain. Stains on my sleeves. Taste of your hand on my teeth. Bruises and pain on my knees. Don't know what happened to me, mon chéri. I lost my mind in Paris. I lost my mind in Paris. Tu m'as rendu folle à Paris, sans dans la rue Rivoli. Quand je t'ai vue avec cette demoiselle, mais je t'aimerai toujours à mourir.
Now I kind of wish she sang that whole song en français. Beautiful. That's Foja and Lost My Mind in Paris. And we are going to talk to actually two Manitobans who kind of did that exact thing. One's a fashion blogger, one's a local designer. They just returned from Paris Fashion Week, so they're on the show in the next hour.
Ant-sized ads promoting a marvelous miniature superhero.
No, I didn't steal anything. I was returning something I stole.
A billboard for an action movie actually dripped sweat.
Ew.
And a film Saved by a Beetle got banned and still was a box office success.
I'm not the Messiah!
Creative movie marketing on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Time right now is 11 minutes to 7 o'clock. And next on the show, if you use the AI chatbot Claude, you're now using what the U.S. government calls a supply chain risk. The government made that designation after its creator, Anthropic, pushed back on the use of the AI for mass surveillance and autonomous weapons. It has led to a lawsuit south of the border, but that dispute could have implications for us here in Canada, whether you use Claude or not. Francis Sims is here to explain. He covers tech issues for CBC. Hey, Francis.
Hey, good morning.
So I guess we should back up just a step, because if people haven't been following this, how did we get to this point?
Yeah, so most people are familiar with another tool, which is ChatGPT, which is owned by a company called OpenAI. So Anthropic is a competitor to OpenAI and has a tool called Claude. Very good, and in some cases does things better. And last summer, they signed a deal with the Pentagon in the United States worth $200 million, which allowed them to deploy Claude behind the scenes, behind the secret curtain in the Pentagon. And so how it was being used is sort of like this. Imagine you're planning a trip and you want to drive to BC for the summer. Well, you may use ChatGPT and say, can you plan a few different scenarios that have hotels along the way with pools for the kids, and if it rains, maybe a museum, and it'll come back with some ideas. What Claude was doing was the same thing for the military, except instead of vacations, it was asking for battlefield scenarios, and it was leveraging the intelligence data that the U.S. infrastructure has gathered. That could be satellite images, reports of where enemy troops might be, things like that. OpenAI or Anthropic said there were two red lines. One is it could not be used for mass domestic surveillance, because in the United States, unlike in Canada, data can be bought and sold quite easily. In Canada, we have a lot more rules around that. And the second thing is autonomous weapon deployment. So just because the AI tool could come up with recommendations, and in some cases they thought maybe like 1,000 different recommendations in an hour was the target, they didn't want the government to be able to use that to deploy the weapons automatically or autonomously. They wanted a human in the loop, somebody that was there to look at it and make the decision. What happened is they issued a memo in January, the government saying that any company needed to comply with all U.S. laws. Anthropic said, well, even if this is now allowed as under the law, we're not going to do it. They were blacklisted, escalated, and then deemed this supply chain risk.
What does that mean, supply chain risk?
First time it's ever been done for a domestic company in the United States. It was designed to protect Americans from being surveilled or influenced by foreign adversaries. It had been used on Chinese companies in the past. It had been used on a Russian company. never on an American company. And if you're put into that category, what that means is if you're doing any business with the Pentagon, if you're a U.S. company, strictly speaking, you may not be allowed to use Claude in your network at all. And they've given these companies 6 months to remove it. Now, all this stuff is being tested in court. Anthropic launched a massive lawsuit and tried to get an injunction to stop this because companies like Amazon invest in Anthropic and also do work with the U.S. government, and they don't know, can they still use Claude for work with us, consumers, and then still do it with the government? All that stuff needs to be tested in court.
So let's build that out a little bit in terms of what this could mean for Canadians and Canadian companies, as you said, that might be using Claude right now.
Yeah, so if you're a company that sells to the U.S. defense establishment, you probably need to think really hard as to whether or not, if you're using Claude in your network, are you allowed to do that? You're going to have to certify at some point, attest to that. It's not clear if you're using it for other purposes. Are you still allowed to do that? It's a messy situation for Canadian companies. But also, if you're doing business with a Canadian defense establishment, what's unclear is, do you still need to comply with U.S. rules? Because in some cases, like think cybersecurity, we're so tightly integrated that if you comply to Canadian regulations, in some cases you also need to comply with U.S. regulations, even if you're not selling it to the Department of Defense in the United States, just because we're so tightly coupled. Think NORAD, the talk about F-35s, are we allowed to buy Swedish fighter jets? So that's what we're talking about. And so it adds extra risk and hassle and potential cost to Canadian companies that are already struggling with tariffs. So it's not something that we created, but it's something that we might have to live with.
It also adds pressure to the idea that Canada needs to think about developing its own AI alternative, correct?
Yeah, and the federal government, under the leadership of Minister Evan Solomon, has been pursuing this AI sovereign compute strategy, and I think it's up to like $1 billion or so that's being invested to build homegrown data centers that are owned by Canadians and AI software that's owned by Canadians. Because unfortunately, the reality now is that if you put your data in a tool that's owned by an American company, based on this interaction that we've seen in the last few months, that data could make its way to the government. And what we know is the same company that's building this tool for the Pentagon, Plantier Technologies, and is embedding Claude into it, is the same organization that's doing the work with ICE, right? The Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the United States. And so, there's a lot of data integration that's happening, and the risk is like if you've done something in your past, like say in Canada, you've gotten an abortion, and you go and you tell ChatGPT, should I be worried about that when I go across the border? You go to the border, and the border official knows that you asked that question because it's so tightly coupled. I'm not saying it happens now, but that's the kind of thing we need to start thinking about if we're using American products where our data might be bought and sold.
This is such an aside, but my last question's about, governments turning to AI for surveillance and what it means for privacy. I just watched this like kind of B-movie, Jason Statham action movie called Shelter last night. And that was the whole thing. They have this whole surveillance. It seems like when we're watching these fabricated, so to speak, movies now on cinema, it's not so fabricated anymore. I mean, this is going on. How concerned should we be about our notion of privacy, do you think?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, there was talk about bringing BYD cars in. That was the Chinese EV cars. And there was a lot of talk around the Five Eyes that we shouldn't do it because those cars could be used for surveillance. Now we're taking those cars in because I think the fact is that we're being surveilled all the time. If you have a doorbell camera on your door, that doorbell camera is likely recording everybody walking by, whether you're rubbing your nose or scratching your head, and that data is going somewhere.
And apparently there's data there just to interject even if you don't have a subscription or have it on, because there was a case in the States where that happened. So there's a lot 100%. Of things here that we need to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the bottom line is we're being surveilled all the time, and I think this concept of privacy, at least in the next little while, if we're using American software, is a myth. And so if you type anything into those tools, you have to assume that at least everybody at the company can see it, but maybe the U.S. government can see it as well.
All right, Francis, thank you very much for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That is technology columnist Francis Sims. He's Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology over at Humber Polytechnic. It is 3 minutes now to 7 o'clock. Let's have a look at what's coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. Still ahead on the show, we are going to be looking at something that's developing at the city. A Winnipeg councillor says that City Hall's on the right track when it comes to building more affordable homes in Winnipeg. However, how quickly can we build them? The city's behind its targets to get specific federal funding continuing. So we'll have that conversation coming up and look at what pace we have set and what we need to do. Also, as I mentioned, Prairie Girls broke into Paris Fashion Week. 2 Manitoba women traveled to France to take part in the week-long event. One is a designer, one's a fashion blogger. They're going to join us to debrief their trip and also to talk about the fashion industry if you're looking at how it's developing here in Manitoba. That's coming up at 7:40. Right now, let's turn to Heather Wells. She's here with other headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the Manitoba government says it is considering banning paid plasma clinics after a CBC investigation revealed 2 people recently died months apart after donating plasma in Winnipeg. Health Company says the company Grifols, Health Canada rather, says the company Grifols reported 2 different fatal adverse reactions. Manitoba's health minister says all options are on the table. And a Sewers woman is raising her 4th pride flag today after her 3rd one was stolen. The theft comes after someone poured paint on the Sewers Pride crosswalk last fall. We'll hear the latest in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
On the highways, just check before you go out. We don't have any major reports of big problems out there, but the weather's going to change, so that could shift for you later. This morning, though, you can call the commuter line to report anything in your city or on the highways or in our city here in Winnipeg, if that's where you're listening. 788-3093. Corey will pick it up. We'll pass it along here. So weather-wise, a yellow level advisory for blowing snow could affect visibility. Winds will gust up to 80 km. It's really going to develop through the day, and this is across the Red River Valley, including Steinbach, Portage, Morden, Piney, Glenborough, as well as Norfolk and up through Victoria. So that is what's happening with the warning. In Winnipeg today, we're going to get some snow, 2 to 4 centimeters, and the winds are going to gust southeast 30 to 50. Right now, it's cloudy to start your Thursday, and it is minus 11 over in Brandon, clear minus 12, and Thompson's partly cloudy and minus 19. Stay right here. We're going to get the latest on the war in the Middle East and other stories developing Canada and worldwide on World Report on CBC. That's coming up next. It's 1 minute to 7 o'clock.
On the Current.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Fewer people are going to the movies these days, something that is worrying to those who are devoted to the cinema, either as fans or the people who make those movies.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
An ode to the magic of coming together in a dark room to watch a film coming up on The Current.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The price of oil is rising again over the supply uncertainty caused by the Iran war. It's now hovering around $100 a barrel. The volatility leading governments around the world to adopt new measures to deal with the insecurity.
Today I have decided to relax the requirements under the Fuel Quality Act when it comes to sulphur content on a temporary 60-day basis. This will see 100 million litres of fuel extra flow in Australia a month.
That's Australia's Energy Minister Chris Bowen announcing plans to ease fuel quality standards. China says it's stopping the export of refined fuel immediately, starting tomorrow. South Korea is capping domestic gasoline and diesel prices. And New Zealand's government is considering restricting vehicle use. All this comes as Iran launches fresh attacks targeting oil infrastructure and transportation in the Persian Gulf. As Briar Stewart explains, at least one country is benefiting from the conflict: Russia.
Video shows 2 fuel tankers engulfed in flames off the coast of Iraq, part of an Iranian campaign to choke off the energy trade in the Persian Gulf. One Iranian official warned that the U.S., Israel, and its allies should be prepared for oil prices as high as $200 a barrel. Sergei Pitkin is the director of the Moscow-based Energy Development Fund. He says the Middle East crisis has led to a surge in prices, including for Russia's heavily sanctioned crude. It's obvious that shipments from the Middle East are not so reliable anymore. The transportation risks are enormous, he told CBC News, adding that this really plays into Russia's hands because it continues to supply oil to China, India, and other nations. European officials have warned against any move that will lift sanctions on Russian oil. The Russian president's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, met with his U.S. counterparts in Florida on Wednesday and said that the global energy crisis was among the topics discussed. There have been reports in U.S. media that Russia is supplying intelligence to Iran and giving it advice on drones. Russian officials have denied that it's sharing intelligence on U.S. targets.
So we have to watch them very, very closely.
Michael Allen is a former U.S. National Security Council special assistant.
People should recognize that Russia is basically an adversary of the United States, even if President Trump is trying to have a workable relationship with them.
Russia signed a strategic partnership treaty with Tehran last January, and it's one of the biggest foreign investors in the country's economy. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Iran is clear. It's prepared to use oil as a weapon of war. As attacks increase in the Strait of Hormuz, commercial shipping companies and their workers are caught in the crosshairs. Senior business reporter Nisha Patel has more on the dangers of navigating this critical maritime route.
It's the most dangerous place in the world at the moment.
The Strait of Hormuz, where civilian vessels have been hit with projectiles. Philip Belcher is a marine director for Intertanko, which represents independent tanker owners. He says at least 7 crew members have been killed so far.
They're seeing the missiles going over their heads. They are unprotected, sitting on those ships.
Iran has vowed not to allow any oil exports to pass through the strait while it's at war, and experts say the huge size and slow speed of the tankers make it almost impossible to pass through undetected.
We look at the situation, I should say, hour by hour, so it's very difficult to plan.
Niels Haupt is with Hapag-Lloyd, a German container company which has 6 ships anchored in the Persian Gulf. He says maritime insurance rates are spiking, but it's the threat of physical harm to their unarmed workers that's keeping their ships stalled.
Commercial shipping has never been attacked and has never been part of a war.
And now they must consider the possibility that Iran could lay mines. It's all taking a toll on the workers.
They're scared. They want to go home. They don't.
Jacqueline Smith is a maritime coordinator for the International Transport Worker Federation, which represents seafarers around the world. Smith says many are from developing countries.
And they shouldn't be collateral damage for doing their job.
But it's likely they won't be able to leave until the hostilities are over. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
The heart of Beirut is under fire this morning. An Israeli drone strike has killed at least 8 people along the city's popular seafront. The missiles hit a vehicle in an area where hundreds of displaced families have been sleeping in tents. This is the 3rd time Israeli forces have struck central Beirut since the conflict began. Lebanese health officials say across the country more than 630 people have died. Prime Minister Mark Carney's focus this week is on security in a different part of the world, the Arctic. He'll be in Yellowknife today before heading to Norway and the United Kingdom for meetings with allied leaders. And in Norway, he plans to travel beyond the Arctic Circle to observe a huge NATO training exercise. The CBC's Murray Brewster has more.
Our job as the NATO AWACS is to be the eyes in the sky.
The American crew commander of a NATO airborne early warning aircraft, cruising high above the Barents Sea off Norway, one of tens of thousands of Allied troops, sailors, and aircrew taking part in NATO's exercise Cold Response. This flight contains several Canadian officers attached to NATO duty. Prime Minister Mark Carney will be meeting with Canadians who are taking part in the exercise when he travels to Norway on Friday to observe the war games along with Norway's Prime Minister and Germany's Chancellor. He's in Yellowknife today for another Arctic-related announcement. As part of his trip, Carney will also be meeting with other Nordic European leaders.
This tells Donald Trump that we've got Arctic security covered, that he doesn't need to worry about it. It's our responsibility. We're taking it on.
Michael Byers is a political and defense expert at the University of British Columbia who says the political and sovereignty messaging here is unmistakable.
This is happening in the aftermath of the crisis over Greenland. Of course, from a Canadian context, it's in the aftermath of all the statements about the 51st state, which are driven at least in part by concerns about Arctic security.
Trump has backed off of his threat to annex Greenland, for now. Officials in the Prime Minister's office, speaking on background, say observing the NATO exercise will inform Canada's plans for its own Arctic region. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Today's the day the Trump administration has to report on its plan to refund billions of dollars in tariffs. Last month, you recall, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs were illegal. By then, though, the U.S. had already collected more than $160 billion on imported goods, and companies want that money back. All this comes as the U.S. considers ways to impose new tariffs. Trump's team is investigating manufacturing in other countries, including China, the EU, and India. It's looking for evidence that government support is giving their companies an unfair advantage over U.S. firms. The Carney government strategy to protect nature expected to be released in the coming weeks, but conservation groups worry it won't come with any new funding. They say that means Ottawa's goal to protect 30% of Canada's land and water by the year 2030 is at risk. David Thurton reports.
We can't forget these other obligations. They can't be pushed aside because there are large geopolitical things happening. They have to happen at the same time.
Sandra Schwartz with the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society says conservation may not be top of mind for the Liberals, but the government still needs to meet its nature targets.
We recognize that it could seem very tone deaf right now given what's happening geopolitically. But these are also commitments that are important to our long-term survivability as a species.
According to a senior federal government source not authorized to speak publicly, the Carney government's promised nature strategy is expected in a matter of weeks. Not clear, though, will the billions of dollars in funding set to expire this month get renewed?
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that Canadian nature is in crisis, and nature globally is in crisis.
David Wallace with Nature Canada says allowing that money to lapse places critical conservation projects at risk.
We are seeing the highest rates of extinction that we've seen since the dinosaurs, and that is happening as a result of human action.
The state of species in Canada looks grim, with experts saying 1 in 5 wild species face some risk of disappearing from the Canadian wild. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally, King Charles is reportedly expressing concern about a separatist push in Alberta. He met with Indigenous leaders yesterday at Buckingham Palace, and Grand Chief Joey Peet of the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations says they made Charles aware of the separatist movement in Alberta and how it threatens treaties. He says the king expressed his concern and committed to learn more. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. Well, Thursday is coming in, and it's going to be blustery and snowy by the end of it. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg and heard across Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, we have continuing coverage this morning. Today, we learned that the province is considering banning paid plasma clinics. It comes after the deaths of 2 people who sold their plasma at the clinics in Winnipeg, as we heard in our news yesterday. One of them was a 22-year-old international student whom a close friend describes like this.
Herodiat was a very kind soul. She was always happy. She had so many dreams.
More on the loss, and also from the Manitoba Health Minister in this half hour of the show. In addition, a Winnipeg City Councillor says the city's behind on targets to get specific federal funding that comes through the Housing Accelerator Fund. We'll find out how far behind and whether or not that could put at risk some of the housing that's planned for here in Winnipeg and is so needed. So that's coming up live before 8. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba is asking Sobeys to drop its property restrictions blocking rival grocery stores from opening. This after a new provincial law to curb the use of these real estate deals signed by grocers, barring competitors from setting up nearby. Restrictions could only continue in Manitoba, though, if they were registered with the province, and Sobeys was the only company to do that. Manitoba Public Service Minister Mintu Sandhu is asking Sobeys to lift its property controls voluntarily. The head of the Manitoba Nurses Union is thrilled about the provincial government's latest move to legislate nurse-patient ratios. Darlene Jackson warns it will take time to accomplish, but she believes it will ease the nursing shortage. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
You know what's interesting, Heather? Sometimes at CBC we have editorial conversations to try to learn about systems, so it won't lead to maybe a story that you'd hear on the air, but it will lead to our understanding of an important story. Yeah. I sat down years ago with then Brian Postal, who was in charge of a big aspect of healthcare, of course, here. And it was this conversation to try to understand things. And the thing he said to me, I said, if I need to understand one thing about healthcare, what would you say to me to really read more about? And he said nurse-patient ratios.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
That is.
All those years ago. So it's in the headlines this morning. And having done a lot of reading on it, it's interesting to try to understand what does that mean? What does it mean in different aspects of healthcare? And then how they compare around the world and across Canada for sure.
So key.
Totally. So we'll hear more. Obviously, as you said, that local reaction will be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also where they've been set. So that's coming up at 7:30. Right now, we're going to Abby because, as I mentioned, the weather's going to change today, Abby.
Yes, Mercy. Blowing snow advisory in effect for a large portion of southern Manitoba this morning, as this powerful northwesterly gust and fresh snow will be creating near zero visibility and dangerous travel conditions from the midday period into the overnight hours. So you need to brace for that. That's for the southern part. So while we're bracing for this blustery day, we'll see highs near -2 in the southern region, while up north we still have frigid temperatures as low as -25s and biting wind chills close to -41s this morning. For Winnipeg right now, we're looking at temperatures around -11. Cloudy at the Forks. We're seeing a light snow falling at the airport. Temperatures will hover around -10 most of the morning, and we're headed into this snowy and blowing snow day beginning around the noon period. Winnipeg expecting about 2 to 4 centimeters, and we warm up to about -2 later. So overall, it's still the split snow down south, and it's still pretty cold in the northern part of the province. -25 right now in Churchill.
All right, thanks very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Into the commute this morning, Corey Funk.
Yeah, so far it's been pretty quiet overall. I did get a call earlier from down on a bike. He said the Southwest Rapid Transit is quite lovely, looking well plowed. But the sidewalks looking a bit icy, though. So heads up if you're in that area this morning on an active commute. Other than that, though, if you're walking, bike, and driving, would love to hear from you. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, just to reiterate the information I just shared, and as we've been hearing in the news, 2 people have died after giving plasma at Winnipeg collection centers that pay people for donations. Now, these deaths are under review by Health Canada. The federal regulator says it is still assessing these reports, and they've not made a link between the plasma collection and the deaths. Now, we first heard this story through CBC Manitoba's I-Team being reported yesterday. Today, we're learning more about one of the 2 people who died, 22-year-old Rodiat Alabedi. She was a student at the University of Winnipeg. CBC's Michelle Allen from the I-Team spoke with her friend, Marianne Chica.
Rodi was always there for me whenever I needed someone to talk to. She was kind of like family, even though we're not related by blood. She was actually the only person I was close enough to, open up to and share things with, because she would always comfort me, give me realistic advice, That was what comes to my mind whenever I think about her. She was a very, very good person.
You mentioned you guys had dreams together. What was she studying and what were her dreams?
She was studying social services. She had plans on, finishing school and becoming a social worker. She wanted to help people with mental disability. So that was her dream, and that was what she wanted to do right after school.
So that's Marianne Chika talking about her friend Rodiat Alabedi, who died after selling her plasma to a for-profit organization. Now, the business is called Grifols, Grifols, for the benefit of our radio listeners here. Now, this is a Spanish company. It has multiple for-profit locations across Canada. It pays people around $30 to $100 for plasma, and perhaps you've donated here in Winnipeg. The Manitoba government now says it's considering banning paid plasma clinics. So Michelle Allen also spoke with Health Minister Uzoma Asagwara.
Start by telling me about your first reaction when you heard about these two reported fatal adverse reactions at Grifols in Winnipeg.
Well, my first reaction was shock. It's obviously a devastating situation that families are now facing, that two loved ones, two Manitobans, tragically pass away after, my understanding, going to donate plasma. These are we want Manitobans to be safe, and no matter how they're engaging with either the healthcare system or any service or agency like this. So my first reaction was shock, concern. What is going on here? What has happened to these Manitobans? At the heart of this is their families, who are grieving the loss of their loved ones. And then, of course, how can we help get answers for these families and make sure that other Manitobans don't face these kinds of tragedies?
When did you find this out?
I was informed several weeks ago now about the concern around this. So actually, I'm going to get Anya to get you the exact timeline. So I was informed recently about these concerns about two Manitobans who had passed away as a result of potential adverse reactions to donating. Again, my first reaction was shock and concern, thinking about families who are getting news like this. And then, of course, a lot of questions. I have questions. I know these families and communities have questions, and so we're awaiting the results of an investigation that Health Canada is undertaking. But obviously wanting to know what happened here and what needs to be done to prevent this from happening moving forward.
Of course. Does Health Canada notify the province when an establishment like this, there isn't a reported adverse reaction?
So Health Canada did notify our government and our department about these adverse reactions and these deaths of Manitobans, as they should. They've also, they have, experts here in Manitoba, including the Chief Medical Officer, the Chief Medical Examiner, who is fully participating in the investigation. So we've made very clear to Health Canada that any experts locally, whatever they need from Manitoba to make sure that this investigation is done as thoroughly as possible and these families get the answers they deserve, we're going to engage completely.
And what has your government done in response to Health Canada's information about this?
Well, first, again, I had a whole set of questions myself. Immediately concerned, feel devastated for these families, but immediately I had a number of questions, as does our department, in terms of what has actually happened here. The investigation is a really important part of this conversation. Health Canada needs to do their due diligence and understand how these Manitobans passed away, and then inform, what needs to happen to make sure that this does not occur to another Manitoban, that another family doesn't experience this tragedy moving forward. So from our perspective, we want to make sure that all Manitoba officials and experts who need to participate in this investigation do so that these families get the answers that they deserve and they need. And then, of course, we're looking at all options being on the table in terms of what we can do as a government to protect the public.
When you say all options on the table, what might some of those options be?
Oh, that's what we're looking at right now. What are the options available to us as a province to make sure that we are first and foremost protecting the public? Our priority is the safety of the public. It's the safety of people who maybe are considering donating plasma or accessing these services for any reason. And so we're looking at all of our options that are available to us. We are going to await, of course, before taking any action, the findings of Health Canada's investigation to make sure that we make an informed decision. But like I said, it's important for us to make sure that we explore all the available options to protect the public. And I have been asked, are you considering maybe taking the step of eliminating this company from the province? I would say that public safety is our top priority, and so the option of banning paid plasma in Manitoba is an option that is on the table, but it's something that we won't do, or we won't take any steps until we have the full investigation completed and the results of that in front of us.
So that's Health Minister Zoma Seguera discussing the possibility of banning for-profit plasma clinics in conversation with CBC Manitoba I-Team's Michelle Allen. So in a statement, Grifols, the company, said, quote, "We were saddened to learn of the recent passings of two of our donors. Our sincere condolences to their families. The health and safety of our donors is our ultimate priority. Every donor undergoes an extensive health history evaluation and physical examination before being deemed eligible to donate," end quote. That statement goes on to say, quote, "By Health Canada requirements, while extremely rare, if a donor experiences a serious adverse reaction or passes away within 72 hours of donating, it must be reported. In each of these cases, we followed the protocol upon learning of the donor's passing," and that was reiterated by our health minister. The statement says, "We then commenced an internal review related to each case while also supporting Health Canada's review," end quote. If you want to read more, you can see the story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Of course, we'll follow up on whatever is found in those reviews. And also, I'm very curious if you have donated plasma and what that experience is like and what led you to do so. And so that would just be an interesting thing to understand from people. So if you have and have had that experience and you want to share what motivated you to do this, you can give us a call if you want to share. It's 788-3205. 7:22 the time, -11 the temperature, light snow falling, and morning sports coming up in a moment. Mitchell McCoons rather, has some music for us first. If you want to check him out, he's playing at Bell's Kitchen out on Narran Avenue, Winnipeg, April 2nd. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Brandon Bourne, and Winnipeg-based musician. This tune is called Cold Coffee.
I don't like cold coffee too much. Only drink it when I'm angry or I'm sad. Come to think of it, I love it more than I thought I'd had. I think I like cold coffee too much. Can't get through without my friends. It reminds me that today's not the end. Everybody has those days and they show it in different ways. Can't get through without my friends. When it rains, we'll retreat into our little log cabin. When it snows, we'll put another log on the fire. Burning desire, that's you and I. When it rains, we'll retreat into our little apartment. When it snows, we won't have a walkway to plow. Here and now, that's you and I.
Mitchell McCoons and cold coffee. Scott, nice little ditty. I don't know if you like cold coffee. It's an acquired taste, I think.
Well, I like the song. It can harken a tiny bit of Willie Nelson for me. I could imagine being on the open road with that tune. As for cold coffee, no, I like it with a bit of heat.
I like it with when it's Vietnamese cold coffee with like ice in it and a ton of sugar.
Yeah.
Evaporated
Is it even
milk.
coffee at that point?
Maybe. Let's talk about baseball. Canada on the diamond making history at the World Baseball Classic.
You know who likes coffee at the World Baseball Classics? Espresso in particular. The Italian team that has just been incredible. After every home run that they hit, and they've hit plenty, rather than putting on a home run jacket like the Jays do, they have an espresso machine in the dugout. Yeah, and they do shots of espresso, and then they kiss each other in either cheek. All very Italiano. Anyhow, that's them. Let's talk about Canada now, Marcy, who beat Cuba yesterday and clinched a spot in the tournament's quarterfinals for the very first time. The 7-2 win, a collective effort, although starting pitcher Cal Quantrill's contributions stand out the most for me. He went 5 innings. He allowed a meager 2 hits, one of the biggest moments, if not the biggest, in the major leaguer's career. And he says he's glad his hometown of Port Hope, Ontario, got to see it all.
I had friends and family taking time off work. My family runs a car dealership. They basically shut down sales for the day to watch the game. I just think this is a great moment for Baseball Canada, and hopefully this is an inspiration to young players back home. Whether it be East Coast, West Coast, we can compete on the biggest stage against countries that baseball is their #1 sport. And we're not here for a participation ribbon. We're here to compete and play ball and win against the best countries in the world.
And Team Canada will get that chance tomorrow against, oh man, the U.S. in Houston. From the Olympic gold medal hockey games to soccer's She Believes Cup, Marcy, it has been a sporting trend of late. The Maple Leaf up against the Stars and Stripes and facing a star-studded American lineup, including Bobby Witt Jr., Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge. This might be the biggest test of them all for Canada. What's the expression, though? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. We'll play some Jimmy Cliff tomorrow ahead of that.
Love it. You have updates on a couple soccer stories as well.
Yeah, we have a bit more clarity, Marcy, around Alphonso Davies' latest injury. He lasted just 25 minutes in Bayern Munich's Champions League match on Tuesday before clutching at his leg and then leaving the field in tears. Bayern says he tore a muscle in his thigh. No recovery timeline offered by the club, although the injury, they say, is a tear similar to a hamstring ailment that kept Davies out of action for the past couple of weeks. He will almost certainly miss Canada's World Cup warm-ups at the end of this month against Iceland and Tunisia. The question now is, will Alphonso be fit for the World Cup itself?
We're looking at baseball history. Tonight we could see more history made in basketball.
We could and likely will, and I say likely because Hamilton's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Marcy, only needs to repeat what he's done 126 games in a row, and that is score at least 20 points in a contest. Only the legendary Wilt Chamberlain has managed that feat, and he did it back in the 60s when, as a rare 7-footer, he ruled the sport and often played every minute of every game. Well, the sport's changed dramatically since then, and even Shea himself seems baffled by the prospect of breaking Wilt's record.
It's still a lot to even wrap my head around. And to be honest with you, I try not to even think about it. So much is going on. So many things have to go right for you to get what you ultimately want. But obviously, being in a conversation with a guy like that, it's special. It's crazy to think that where I was 10 years ago, I'd be here today. But you work hard, great things can happen for you, and I'm a testament to that.
Shea and the OKC Thunder host Boston tonight, so if he's going to get his 20-plus, it'll be against one of the best defenses in the league. I suspect he might still do it.
Yeah, no doubt. He's something. All right, thanks very much, Scott. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Your CBC News for Manitoba is up next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is about to get blustery in Winnipeg. We are in for some snow and blowing snow. Right now, we're at -11. Temperature is going to climb to -2. That wind, southeast 30, gusting to 50. And there are parts of southern Manitoba today under a blowing snow advisory. So do be careful if you're traveling on highways today. Manitoba's government says it is considering banning paid plasma clinics after a CBC investigation revealed 2 people recently died months apart after donating plasma in Winnipeg. Health Canada says the company Grifols reported 2 different fatal adverse reactions. Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says all options are on the table.
These organizations and companies that are for profit, they must be accountable to Manitobans, right? They can't just set up shop in our province and we see, bad outcomes or tragic outcomes happen and these companies not be accountable to that.
Health Canada is currently reviewing the deaths to find out if the deaths are linked to plasma donation. Asseguera says the province will decide what to do once they get the results. The head of the Manitoba Nurses Union is thrilled the province will be the first to have legislation on nurse-patient ratios. Darlene Jackson warns, though, it will take time to accomplish, and she believes it will ease the nursing shortage.
We're going to start seeing nurses come back into the system when they understand they come to work and they're going to have a controlled environment in which they're going to provide patient care. They're going to have reasonable patient loads, and they're going to be able to provide the care they really want to.
Jackson says a committee turned over recommendations last December to the health minister for nurse-patient ratios in each facility or unit in the province. And she says now comes the task of implementing the ratios. Jackson says once that's in place, the mandatory overtime issue will also be resolved. Manitoba is asking Sobeys to drop the property restrictions blocking rival groceries from opening. It comes after a new provincial law to curb the use of these real estate deals signed by grocers, barring competitors from setting up nearby. Restrictions could only continue if they were registered with the province, and Sobeys was the only company to do it. Mike Von Massow is a food economist at the University of Guelph. He hasn't spoken to Sobeys officials, but says the company probably doesn't want smaller competitors nearby because it could encourage customers to shop around.
With food prices higher, people are more willing to invest the time to go shop in other stores. And the closer it is, the easier that is to do.
Manitoba Public Service Minister Mintu Sandhu is asking Sobeys to lift its property controls voluntarily, or the province will ask the municipal board to void the deals as being against public interest. Sobeys did not respond to our request for an interview. A Manitoba paramedic fired for refusing a call at the end of his shift has also been fined and suspended. Matthew Chorney was working as a paramedic in West St. Paul in 2023 when he was notified of a 911 call about an 85-year-old woman who was choking and losing consciousness. He decided not to go to the call because there was less than 10 minutes left on his shift. He was only 3 minutes away from the woman's home. But a unit from Selkirk that was 19 minutes away ended up going after he declined that call. The woman was found suffering from respiratory distress and improved once she was taken to hospital. The College of Paramedics disciplinary panel found Chorney guilty of 5 charges, including professional misconduct. He was reprimanded and ordered to pay the $25,000 cost of the investigation. Well, oil prices are surging again today, hovering just below $100 US a barrel this morning, and governments are adopting new measures to preserve supply.
I have decided to relax the requirements under the Fuel Quality Act when it comes to sulphur content on a temporary 60-day basis. This will see 100 million litres of fuel extra flow in Australia a month.
Australia's Energy Minister Chris Bowen announcing plans to ease fuel quality standards. New Zealand's government is considering restricting vehicle use, and China is imposing an immediate ban on refined fuel exports. All this as Iran intensifies attacks on energy sites in and around the Persian Gulf. You can hear the latest on what's happening in the Middle East and its impacts coming up on World Report at 8. A Souris woman has a message of resilience after her pride flag was torn from her home for the 3rd time. Karen Kempe says it's frustrating and disappointing. She already has a new flag up with a new message.
We need to put ourselves into that mindset that the important thing is to be kind to everyone, right? And if we can be kind, then love will win.
Kempe says she looks forward to celebrating Pride in Souris in June and hopes to encourage conversations to bridge divides. You can find more news as it's updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
It is time to get into this forecast. The last couple of days have been colder than usual, Abby, but still sunny and pretty calm in southern Manitoba. Today we shift.
Yes, we shift and there's a split. We're anticipating dangerous blowing snow across portions of southern Manitoba today, with the extreme cold still gripping parts of the northern region. Hence, there's a yellow blowing snow advisory in effect for regions covering the Steinberg area all the way towards Headingley and Killarney this morning. We should be seeing that system move through around the noon period. And this fresh snow, once it starts to whip around with the wind speed involved close to 80 kilometers, we will see near zero visibility and dangerous travel conditions through the afternoon period into the evening. So be prepared for that. Your commutes might be tricky as you head home. While up north, we're still tracking extreme wind chills and the values of minus 41. Winnipeg right now, we are currently at minus 11. Cloudy conditions, expecting the sun to make its appearance. We're expecting a snowy day and blowing snow beginning around the noon period. Marcy, I hear the phone ringing.
Yep.
We
You wanna grab it?
we're anticipating about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow.
And then-
It stopped.
And then come back and do Brandon?
Yeah,
Oh, it stopped.
It stopped.
Okay.
We're anticipating about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow in the city. We warm up to about -2 later in the day. Now, across the rest of the southern regions, temperatures hovering between -7 and -17. Also, a snowy afternoon for most of the regions, especially the Pembina Valley region. Today, highs would recover nicely between -1 and -4, though those blowing snow means travel will be impacted, so take it easy. Up north, it's more about the wind chill. We're seeing wind chills in the valleys of -25 to -41 around the Churchill region. And then for Tudula Lake, Lynn Lake, we'll see temperatures just fall even further this afternoon. Frostbite in minutes on exposed skin, so take it easy. Winnipeg, once again, -11, but be prepared. It will change around the noon period with those snowy conditions arriving around the noon period. We're expecting it to bring about 2 to 4 centimeters as expected. Wind gusts 60 to 80 kilometers. Be prepared for that.
Okay, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
So that means that your morning drive is not bad. We haven't had a lot of calls about the commuter line, but it means that your afternoon drive could, in fact, be problematic, especially as the winds whip up and increase. Now, we did just hear the phone ringing. Corey was busy, so he couldn't grab it on traffic, but call back if there's a big problem out there. We don't have anything major to report to this hour. You can call us at 788-3093. It's 22 minutes to 8 o'clock, and next on the show, 2 of the best dressed guests I've ever had in studio. If you've dreamed of the glitz and glamour of high fashion runways, we're about to meet 2 women from Manitoba who have lived a little of that. That's because Bridget Smith, who's a local fashion blogger, and Danica Coulthard, who's a local designer, just returned from Paris Fashion Week, and they both join us in studio. So good morning, Bridget.
Good morning.
And good morning to you, Danica.
Good morning.
So as a local designer, what was the value for you of going to Fashion Week? What were you hoping to take in?
Well, during every fashion week, I always am scrolling on social media or looking on the runway apps to see the designs, and being up close, seeing it in person, seeing the street style, just like being in the moment was so incredibly inspiring. It's my dream to work in fashion, especially in Paris. So being there was like a dream come true, honestly, just to be up close to everything.
What's it like to be chasing that dream from here in Winnipeg? We do have quite a number of designers and an active scene. It's not the same as some bigger cities, of course, even in
Yes.
Canada. But what's it like for you to chase that dream in Manitoba?
Winnipeg has such a supportive community. I've met so many local creatives here. Everyone just comes together in Winnipeg, which I love. I've also had a lot of time here because it's not as busy as a city as Paris to develop my craft and work towards my goals, which has been amazing. But I'm just very thankful for all the people in this city being so supportive to
Are
me.
you cutting and sewing? Are you doing
Yes.
everything with your designs? Why do you
Yes.
know how to do that? Where does that skill come from?
I actually took some classes at Red River. They have pattern making classes, so that's where I learned the fundamentals there. But otherwise, I'm largely self-taught. YouTube videos, textbooks, that's my jam. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have other designers in your family?
No. Oh, well, my great-grandmas on one side were like seamstresses and did wedding dresses and that, but
Okay.
not for a while, no.
Yeah. Now, obviously, your story is from a design point of view. Bridget, you blog about fashion. Tell everybody what you're wearing.
Today I'm wearing largely secondhand because that's also something I care about. This hat is like a little vintage pillbox hat.
That was like a leopard pattern on it.
Yes, my
spots.
shirt is thrifted. It's like a lacy pattern, and then I'm actually wearing like a, I don't know, do I stand up?
You can. We'll
Dolce
see part of it. Yeah.
Gabbana vintage skirt.
Oh, you got a good find there.
Yeah, and my Maison Margiela tabbies. So
Beautiful.
That's what I'm in today.
And I should have asked you what you're wearing, Danica, as well.
Yeah, so my blazer actually is one of my own designs.
Oh, lovely.
I cut, sewed it, designed it. A lot of it has like hand stitching in the inside, so it was
The
a long
fabric's
project.
got a Chanel vibe to it.
Yeah, it's like a
understated elegance kind of
yeah,
grace.
Thank you so much.
Quiet.
Yeah, it's a wool, vintage wool fabric actually. So
Yep.
yeah, and then I'm wearing like a vintage slip, and then I'm
Yep.
also wearing Maison Margiela tabbies.
Yeah. How's the fashion blogging aspect of things in Manitoba? And also, tell me a bit more about why you care about vintage.
I definitely like sustainability has always been like a big part of my identity and like things that I care about, and especially in like our climate. So something that is good for like my like moral standpoint, but also as far as affordability is, fashion can be very inaccessible from like price points. So to shop secondhand vintage, it's always like another good way to be able to get your hands on something and not come associated with like the original price of the item.
Yeah.
And as far as like I kind of just like to document my style and just take pictures and.
We're going to roll some of those because if people are watching on our YouTube stream, they can see some photos of you guys in Paris and some of your, what you're wearing and what it was like to be there and all the excitement. So Danica was talking about how this has been something she's wanted to do. This is the first trip for both of you, right there.
Mm-hmm.
How did it come to be that you got there?
So really crazy. We actually worked together at this local consignment store for luxury, which is actually the only place in Manitoba you can get this stuff since we don't have any retail stores. And that's where we met. And we were just at work one day and Danica kind of soft pitched the idea to me. She's like, it's the last day of like the airline sale and it's Fashion Week and my birthday. They align on the same time. Like, should we just go? And I was like, no, we have to go. We have to go. And she was like, okay, like, are we doing this? And I think, yeah, we're doing it.
So what did you get to do? Because you decided this last minute and went. Did you get into any of the things or what was the buzz like? What was it like there?
Yeah, so we kind of didn't have everything set in stone and we didn't know what to expect. I mean, we don't really have events like this here, and that is like the biggest event in fashion is the Fashion Week. So we knew that we wanted to go to this watch party. There was these watch parties that they were hosting to see the new runways. And we knew we wanted to go to that, but we had been walking down the street actually and seen a bunch of people gathering outside of this building. And we were shopping. So we walked up and we met this girl and she said that they had just gotten out of a fashion show and that you can go from show to show and, kind of do like celebrity spotting and meet some cool people and get some streetwear photos and kind of just be around this community. And we didn't even know that was a thing. So then we started really trying to
Getting
figure
into
out
the scene.
Yeah, and what we were going to wear to these shows.
So what was the highlight for you, Danica, in the end of the time you spent in Paris?
Probably going to the watch parties. So they're put on by this guy named Liaz. He started it last June in a bar, and he wasn't invited to the Dior show, and he was like, I'm just going to throw a watch party. It got so packed. So every fashion season since then, it's just been getting bigger and bigger. And he rented out this theater that seats 2,000 people, and it was like packed the last night that we were there. So he puts it on a big screen. He does giveaways. People won tickets to the after party there. If you do like win trivia, someone won a trip to London. So he's just making fashion very accessible. Because,
what a trip.
Yeah.
What a trip you guys had. Has it inspired you, or how are you hoping to maybe bring a little bit of that Paris passion back to the Paris passion and fashion back to the prairies?
I think just continuing to dress up in outfits, be more adventurous. I definitely said to Bridget that I want to start experimenting a little bit more and pushing myself to try new things because there was just so much of that there. And I just, you can just have so much fun with fashion. Every day you can dress up and express yourself any way you want to, which I just think is such an amazing thing.
Do you think that it's difficult to do it in Manitoba because we are, well, for 6 months of the year, first of all, we have to cover up a lot, but also because maybe we aren't as adventurous or maybe the word is stylish as some other places. I'm going to get in trouble for that, Manitoba, but come on now. You've worn your jeans and your runners. I've done this too, and you've looked in the mirror and gone, oh, maybe I actually should step step it up a notch, probably. What do you think about our style in Manitoba?
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit tougher here. Or it's not seen as a big a part of our core culture, and especially with the winter. Yeah, like covering up. I mean, you wear a coat every day; it's going to cover whatever you wear.
So you got to get some great coats, but yeah.
Some fabulous coats is definitely a good way, but it is a little bit tougher here. But I do think that the scene is growing, and I think that people are starting to prioritize fashion as like another art form in itself, and throw events, and that is something that we've even seen over the past few years, and we've gone to some small events here in Winnipeg. So it's nice to see that, but it definitely is a scene that's a little bit smaller and more niche currently.
Well, fantastic to talk to both of you. I know that after COVID, we also had a series where we were talking to local designers, and they were saying business-wise, some of them even had storefronts, then they had to pull back to going more to the maker shows because they just couldn't make a go of it. So it's always something that is growing and needed to shed highlight on. Good luck with your future in fashion, Danica. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for coming in as well, Bridget.
I wouldn't miss it.
Bridget Smith, fashion blogger, and Danica Coulthard, local designer. Both back from Passion Week. Fashion Week in Paris. I can't even speak today. Couldn't resist some music. This is Joel Plaskett and Fashionable People.
I really like you, and I hope you like my band. I like your boyfriend too. Do you think he'd understand? I can't remember how we ended up out here, but all good things have got to start somewhere. The dancers need a dance floor, the swingers gotta swing. Fashionable people doing questionable things. One more time. I don't wanna hang around in someone else's scene. Fashionable people doing questionable things. Fashionable, fashionable, fashionable. Fashionable, fashionable, fashionable. Fashionable, 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 fashionable. Come on! Questionable, questionable, questionable things. So ditch him. He's no good for you. Ditch him. Do the switcheroo. Switch him. Switch him up with me. Leave him in the ditch, and you can hitch a ride for free. The dancers need a dance floor. The swingers gotta swing. Fashionable people doing questionable things. Looking just like magazines. Fashionable, fashionable.
Fun song, eh? That's Joel Plaskett Emergency, the Joel Plaskett Emergency. The tune's called Fashionable People. Off our interview with a couple of Manitobans that just returned from Paris Fashion Week. It's 11 minutes to 8 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Coming up after 8 on the show. Yesterday, we were talking about more Gen Zs seeking mental health services, and that was part of a survey that was done across the country, and also looking at more young men seeking services. However, we also talked about the fact that while that's a great thing overall, there's some challenges because people are self-diagnosing, and in fact, maybe they are not actually getting a diagnosis when they seek services. So why are people self-diagnosing mental health issues and conditions? And what's the risk of that? Does the risk? How do the risk and the benefit match up? So stay tuned. We're going to continue that conversation coming up after 8 o'clock on the program. It is, as mentioned, 11 minutes to 8 right now. And next on the show, let's turn our attention to a story that's happening that affects the city of Winnipeg. Winnipeg's falling behind in its housing targets. Now, that could mean losing some federal federal money from the Housing Accelerator Fund. Under that fund, the city has to approve more than 14,000 building permits by December 5th. So far, they have approved 81% of that. But apparently, if it doesn't meet the target, the city will lose out on a portion of more than the $120 million that's been approved overall. So Evan Duncan's here to talk about it, the city councillor for Charleswood, Tuxedo, Westwood, and chair of the Property Planning Development Standing Policy Committee, and he's here via Zoom. Hi, thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. So it's interesting because you're at 81%. It's only March. You have until the end of the year. So how far behind are you? Because it would seem to me that if you're already 81%, that seems like it would be an okay pace.
I was listening to the lead there and thought far behind. I think we have, not to be too optimistic, but a good front run at this here. The city is doing a great job of transitioning away from the old mentality of how we do business. And it was spurred on by this HALF initiative where, as you mentioned, the federal government gave the city of Winnipeg $121 million to come in phases as we see completion. But we are well on our way to achieving that target. Do we have to look at particular areas as the report indicates? Absolutely. On our transit routes, we need to do a little bit more work there to bolster that number. But the big discussion when it came to council was that missing middle, and that's any dwellings, the 2, 3s, and 4. We are blowing that number out of the water. It's up over 200%. So we're well on our way, Marcy.
So you said something critical, though. You said the money comes in when you see completion. So I know that we've been talking about this in the context of what's happened with housing starts, because when I talked to the mayor, the beginning of the year was, housing starts were looking good, or rather it was data from last year. But then the completion rate actually was falling behind. And he and I had talked about whether or not we have a problem with, needing more people in the construction industry. So is that at the heart of maybe what the concern is here, that the completion may not come in time for the funding?
I think what we're seeing on that end is just the price of everything has become so expensive, and that affects builders as well. At times there's criticism of builders looking for too much profit. Listen, they're in the business of making money. That's okay. But at the end of the day, things are more expensive, and that's just not at the table. That's just not out at the store when you're trying to purchase something simple. That is all around, and we're seeing it in our housing right now because the cost to get these things up and running is just so large that a mid-sized builder now might struggle to find the capital to get the project started. So I'm still confident that we will get it done. Our public service has done a great job. We have made it easier to do business in Winnipeg, and we're going to continue to push here. And I'm confident that by our December deadline, we'll be there.
Are big builders seeking profits part of what is slowing the pace of completion, though? Can that get in the way of the funding?
I don't think so. There is so many initiatives out there now, especially when it comes to affordable housing and CMHC, that the compensation per door is there, and we can make this happen. It's just a matter of controlling all of your hard costs to make sure that we can get our permits out, which again, our department is doing a wonderful job on. We're looking to find quicker ways to do it, and things are coming together. We need to stay focused on the end goal here, and that's reaching our HALF initiative goals, making sure that we have as much affordable housing for Winnipeggers and future Winnipeggers as possible. But at the end of the day, it costs money to put these buildings up, and we need investment in the city of Winnipeg to continue to grow.
So I'm hearing you're optimistic that you're going to meet this target by the end of the year. You have to look at faster permitting maybe as one thing that is part of the solution to this. What else are you going to look at that will help?
I mean, at the end of the day, council is the ultimate yay or nay to it. So we need to make sure that we continue to be collaborative and working together as council to ensure that there's growth. I understand that there are neighborhoods out there who may want this, especially when it comes to multifamily more than others. But that's why we've looked at these corridors. That's why we've looked at these mall sites to make sure that we have densification where our transit needs are, where people are close to our economic zones, including the downtown. We have a great announcement coming up on EPC here with the potential funding for the rejuvenation of the Marlborough Hotel. We have the Old Bay building. We have Portage Place, the rail side development. Everything's coming together. but we need to continue to work together as council to make sure that these things make it through the community committee level, through my committee at Property and Development, and ultimately through to council.
So I'm looking specifically at the report about the pace, and it actually breaks it down into sort of different types of builds. So it says you've approved 40% of the estimated number of the single family units, and you had highlighted that on the transit routes that you're behind. Is that right? How far behind are you on building there?
I think that we're on pace. We just can't take a stumble at any point in time. So as we come along with these main corridors, the Portage Avenues, the Pembina Highways, the Henderson Highways, we need to continue to provide the opportunity for developers to come forward, make their pitch, and ensure that we are open-minded to where we want these densifications to happen, to support transit, and to make sure that we're a growing city.
Is this going to happen by the end of the year? Also, this in the report says city staff are recommending $5 million from the Housing Accelerator Fund redevelops the long-closed Marlborough Hotel downtown. They want to do 300 housing units there. That's what they're suggesting. Will that happen by the end of the year?
I'm confident it will. I'm confident that we can get that off the ground. Again, it's coming to EPC here for approval and ultimately through council. So I look forward to that discussion, just as we had with Portage Place and the Bay site. Council, again, was supportive of that. It made sense with the housing initiative. And ultimately to have more affordable units in our downtown, to get people down there, to make it safer, and to ensure that we have a vibrant downtown, just as any major city has in Canada. We need to make sure that we're continuing to move in that direction, because I'm confident that Winnipeg is going to continue to grow. I'm confident that we're going to continue to be a destination that people want to be in.
Is that the announcement you were alluding to? Do you want to break some news?
No, we'll let EPC and the mayor take the lead on that. I'm excited that we're going to have big projects coming.
All right. Thanks for your time, Councillor Duncan. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Marcy. Have a great day.
You too. That's Evan Duncan live with us on CBC. Our municipal reporter Cameron McLean has a full article on this online if you want to read about it, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Evan Duncan is the Winnipeg City Councillor for Charleswood, Tuxedo Westwood. It is right now 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. And as I mentioned, after 8, we're going to build on something we heard yesterday on the show. In this day and age with influencers, and especially all over TikTok and Instagram, where do you draw the line when it comes to seeking mental health advice? And not just advice, but diagnosis. We're going to talk to a Winnipeg psychologist. We heard more Gen Zers are seeking mental health services, but many are self-diagnosing online with all kinds of things, from ADHD to autism to ADD, and then they're seeking a formal diagnosis and they're not getting it. So something is amiss between those things. That's coming up after 8. Does the risk of that outweigh the reward of seeking those mental health services? So stay tuned. That's after 8. It is lightly snowing in Winnipeg and parts of the city. Downtown pretty calm as the sun's coming up. We do have -11 for our temperature right now. We're going to go to -2 and get some snow today. Snow and blowing snow around noon. So it's going to get blustery, 2 to 4 centimeters. Winds will be 30 to 50. Brandon's very similar at -13 with blowing snow and gusty winds. And there's a blowing snow advisory for the Red River Valley. Winds later today up to 80 km. Let's get to Heather Wells with headlines.
Good morning. The Manitoba government says it is considering banning paid plasma clinics after a CBC investigation revealed 2 people recently died after donating plasma in Winnipeg. Health Canada says the company Grifols reported 2 different fatal adverse reactions. Manitoba's health minister says all options are on the table. A Manitoba paramedic who was fired for refusing a call at the end of his shift has also been fined and had his license suspended. Matthew Chorney was working as a paramedic in West St. Paul in 2023 when he was notified of a 911 call about an 85-year-old woman choking and losing consciousness. He decided not to go to the call because there was less than 10 minutes left on his shift, but he was only 3 minutes away from the woman's home. I'll be back with more news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather. World Report is coming up next on 89.3 FM. Stay with us here on CBC.
On cue. I'm Garvey Bailey in for Tom Power. Dominique Fils-Aimé is a 2-time Juno-winning musician, and she's back with a new album called My World is the Sun. She's here to talk about the message her mother taught her, that peace isn't something you find, it's something you build, and how that idea shaped the music.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current. with Matt Galloway.
Fewer people are going to the movies these days, something that is worrying to those who are devoted to the cinema, either as fans or the people who make those movies. An ode to the magic of coming together in a dark room to watch a film coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Iran's ongoing attacks in and around the Persian Gulf are pushing global oil prices back up. Overnight, 2 oil tankers off the coast of Iraq were struck by projectiles and caught fire. At least 1 crew member was killed. A similar strike near the Strait of Hormuz saw a commercial cargo ship hit and burn. All this creating a lot of uncertainty over the global oil supply. For more, we're joined by CBC business reporter Anis Hadari in Calgary. Anis, let's start with price. What's happening on the markets this morning?
So international prices for oil are still fairly high. The British standard, Brent crude, that's around $100 a barrel at various points this morning. West Texas Intermediate, the U.S. standard, that's dancing around $90 a barrel. Essentially, commodities markets and traders reacted with what seems like a shrug to the announcement that 400 million barrels of oil will be released from strategic reserves. It didn't really relieve prices much at all. So while we're not seeing these giant spikes and changes from the beginning of the week, adding more supply, in theory, is not bringing the price down. Now, American officials have said they're watching for something else in addition to prices. Take a listen to U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright speaking to CNN.
It's the Asian refineries that we want to keep running and tamp down the price of oil to the extent we can through this few weeks crisis. President Trump's thinking long term. He's not thinking about next month.
So if he's worried about Asian refineries, part of this move around emergency supply is just making sure there's enough oil on the other side of the world, period.
Okay, Anis, a lot of countries really worried about oil supply. And what are they doing? And can it work?
So, here in North America, we're worried about price. Supply will probably be okay, but on the other side of the world, it's can they get oil and gas, period. So we're seeing measures that restrict or change how people can use it. Australia is easing fuel quality standards. China is stopping exports. New Zealand's government is restricting vehicle use potentially. Now, here in Canada, we're importing some stuff from overseas, but the issue for us is about price. Oil and gas prices are set globally. And so if this continues, we're going to worry about inflation here. Overseas, though, they are worried about can they get oil, period. And it really does all come down to whether the Strait of Hormuz reopens.
CBC business reporter Anis Hadari in Calgary. Thanks, Anis.
You're welcome.
The heart of Beirut is under fire this morning. An Israeli drone strike has killed at least 8 people along the city's popular seafront. The missiles hit a vehicle in an area where hundreds of displaced families have been sleeping in tents. This is the 3rd time Israeli forces have struck central Beirut since the conflict began. Lebanese health officials say across the country, more than 630 people have died. In other news, the Carney government is set to introduce new legislation today that will give law enforcement more power to intercept communications and seize data. It's tried and failed to pass a similar bill before, but intelligence agencies say they need these new tools to work with other foreign surveillance groups on cross-border security. Well, let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, why is this legislation so controversial?
John, when you're giving law enforcement and intelligence agencies access to data without requiring a warrant from a judge that would set specific parameters about how that data can be used, well, no surprise, that doesn't go over very well with civil liberties watchdogs, who worry that if left unchecked, agents could engage in all sorts of snooping around, reading Canadians' mail, tracking data from the tourism and hospitality sector related to where people travel, stay, even monitoring what healthcare services people are using, on top of things like tapping into cell phones, email, or other online activities, and then potentially sharing this information with foreign intelligence agencies to crack down on cross-border organized crime or terrorism. On the other hand, police services and the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service say their work is falling behind other Five Eyes intelligence partners because there are too many barriers to accessing data that they feel they need for criminal and national security investigations. If law enforcement here can't keep up, That threatens public safety. Fixing this, police say, is urgent. So it's a question between finding the right balance between Big Brother and big security risks for Canadians if officers aren't on top of the latest technology and surveillance practices.
All right, Janice, though, this isn't the government's first attempt to do this.
No. Lawful access powers were part of the very first bill the Carney government introduced last spring. But the opposition's concerns over these measures in particular made it clear that that border bill could not get through the minority parliament as written. It's since been carved in two. When this do-over is introduced in the House today, we'll see if it's going to find enough support to pass.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Today's the day the Trump administration has to report on its plan to refund billions of dollars in tariffs. Last month, you recall, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs were illegal. But by then, the U.S. had already collected more than $160 billion on imported goods, and now the companies want that money back. All this comes as the U.S. considers ways to impose new tariffs. Trump's team is investigating manufacturing in other countries, including China, the EU, and India. It's looking for evidence government support is giving their companies an unfair advantage over U.S. firms. Several remote First Nations in northwestern Ontario are partnering with the province's air ambulance service to fix a long-standing gap in emergency care. Orange is providing new medical vehicles and specialized training, but the communities will have to take the lead on the ground. The CBC's Sarah Law has the details.
Sometimes the thing falls apart, the one that we use, and sometimes it doesn't want to start.
Eddie Mikas is a band counselor in Kiwewin First Nation, a remote OG Cree community near the Ontario-Manitoba border. He's describing the vehicle they use to either bring people to the nursing station or to the airport for medical evacuations. Mikas says he's excited to replace it.
I'm very proud of getting this because it's something that we need.
Kiwewin is one of 8 First Nations in the region that's getting a heavy-duty truck with a medical pod on the back. It's part of the Emergency First Response Team program, or EFRT, that's being led by communities in partnership with Orange.
It's something that I think most Ontarians probably take for granted every day.
That's Jeffrey Gunner, the EFRT's director. The member of Moose Cree First Nation says many remote communities are managing emergencies with few resources.
They throw the person that has a broken leg, whatever, into the back of a van, no attendant.
The EFRT is hoped to change that. Alicia Makala is a paramedic in Deer Lake First Nation. She says having a proper vehicle and people trained to use it is essential.
It saves so much time in those very critical moments.
The trucks are being sent to communities on seasonal ice roads, but it's a race against the clock to deliver them by spring. Sarah Law, CBC News, Thunder Bay, Ontario.
A judge in Newfoundland and Labrador is making headlines for weighing in on the national debate over bail reform. He made some pointed comments this week as he granted bail to someone police call a prolific offender. The judge is receiving praise from advocates, but the victims sitting in his courtroom are less than impressed. Ryan Cook has the story.
I was totally shocked.
Cassie Kellaway was in the courtroom on Tuesday when a judge granted bail to the man accused of burglarizing her family home. 34-year-old Justin King has been dubbed a prolific offender by the RCMP, currently facing 17 charges related to 4 break-and-enters in rural Newfoundland. Kellaway has become a vocal advocate for bail reform, fighting to keep King behind bars.
More people out there like Justin King are being given the same chances over and over and over again. And it needs to stop because people are living in fear.
In his decision, Judge Andrew Wadden called phrases such as jail, not bail, inflammatory rhetoric. Wadden says there are more people in pretrial custody than ever before, yet calls for bail reform only grow louder. Catherine Latimer, executive director of the John Howard Society of Canada, was happy to hear Wadden's comments.
The real problems in the bail system is that it's enormously overused.
Latimer says 48% of Canadian inmates are on remand and have yet to face trial. That's compared to about 25% in the United States. She says those numbers will only go up if the Liberals' bail reform legislation, currently before the Senate, comes into effect.
There's just a real disconnect between what we know about the bail system and what Bill C-14 is actually going to do.
Latimer says the bill has the potential to make communities less safe by criminalizing people before they can prove their innocence. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. A lot of stories on the site this hour to help you understand more about the latest developments on the war in Iran. cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Thursday. Hopefully you're having a good March 12th so far. We're nearly halfway through this month, right? A couple days to go, and we'll be halfway through. Later today, our weather is going to shift a little. So I'm just saying that now because if you have plans later to travel on the highways, you might want to know what's coming. So we do have some warnings and some blowing snow, and we're going to be watching some accumulation amounts. Abby will walk us through everything that's in our forecast in just a couple of minutes. This half hour on the show, we're going to have a conversation about something that started yesterday on the program. So yesterday we heard about a new survey that was across Canada. It looked at more Gen Zs, that generation, seeking mental health services, which is a great thing when they do need help. People reaching out for help, and specifically also young men of that generation being more open to seeking help. However, there are more people of that generation that are self-diagnosing online, and that might come with a couple of notes of caution. So we'll walk through that aspect of this story this half hour on the show. We probably all sat at home at one point or another, especially on social media, doing the test to sort of self-diagnose something that's going on. So where do the risks outweigh maybe the benefits of understanding what's going on with our mental health? So stay tuned for that. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She's here with other news updates. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the province of Manitoba is asking Sobeys to drop the property restrictions blocking rival grocery stores from opening. This comes after a new provincial law to curb the use of these real estate deals signed by grocers, barring competitors from setting up nearby. We're going to hear more about what this is all about. As well, the head of the Manitoba Nurses Union is thrilled about the province's latest move to legislate nurse-patient ratios. Darlene Jackson says it will take time to accomplish, but she believes it will ease the nursing shortage. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Abby, what do you know about everything that's going to happen today in the weather?
Yeah, Marcy, while the South prepares for a messy and blustery day, we're still tracking those Arctic chills in the northern part of the province. But the warnings we have today is more about the blowing snow advisory we have in effect for a large portion of southern Manitoba, covering the Red River Valley region and the Pembina Valley region. We're looking at powerful windy conditions with combined fresh snow that will be creating near zero visibility today. And dangerous travel conditions will develop this evening through the Pembina and the Red River and the Pembina Valley region. For Winnipeg right now, we're hovering between -10 and -11. Mostly cloudy outside. We see the sun trying to peek through there. Expect snow and windy blowing snow to begin around the noon period. Highs will be around -2. Now, after that, blustery north winds will bring temperatures down to about -13 tonight. And for the rest of the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures around -6 in the Pembina Valley region to -7 in the Parkland and Interlake region. Snow accumulation we expect, and once the system comes through, about 2 to 5 centimeters, 2 to 4 in most of the regions, but it's the blowing conditions that will be coming with those snow accumulation that would be of concern during your commute home later in the evening. So take it easy. But for Winnipeg right now, we are around -10 and we're heading for a snowy and windy afternoon.
Okay, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Just before we look at traffic updates on this Thursday morning, we just want to mention something that's going to be changing on Fridays here in Information Radio. So I am no longer going to be, at least for the next 3 months or so to start, hosting the show on Fridays. I'm still at work. I'm going to be doing some producing, in fact, but you'll have a familiar voice that's going to be here behind the microphone because it is...
It's me.
It's Corey Funk. So, Corey, you're going to be hosting on Friday, which looking forward to hearing you
we're calling
doing
it
that.
Funky Fridays. We're going to completely revamp the show. Yeah, it could be totally different. Mostly funk bands from the 60s, 70s.
80s and today, I think is the
exactly.
private split.
Yeah, exactly. Just keeping it loose, you know?
No more news.
No more news.
No, who needs
we're
that?
of course, yeah,
No.
yeah. Big shoes to fill on Fridays, but we're gonna keep it going. I think last time I hosted, we had a cabinet minister. Can't guarantee a federal cabinet minister on the show every time, but we're gonna try our darndest to get some really good conversations going.
Under the new format, Corey, we'll just ask the cabinet ministers what their
Their favorite funk
favorites are.
band, Parliament Funkadelic, probably. I'm guessing.
Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So Fridays for the next 3 months, you'll be with me. I'll ease you into your weekend with some good conversations about what's going on in the news, but also some
All
really
right.
good things.
So doing traffic will be, I think, Sierra Sanders.
That's right.
Who's going to be directing the program, and then Abby remains weather and behind the board here on Fridays.
That's right.
What do we know this morning about the commute?
It's been very quiet so far. There's interestingly on Manitoba 501, I keep seeing this patch on the highway number 1 west of the city between Portage, Portage La Prairie, and Austin, Manitoba, of just like covered conditions. So that might be a tricky part. It might be a little slippery there if you're on Highway 1 this morning. Other than that, though, if you do see something going on, you can give me a call. It's 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, more Gen Zs, that folks from that generation, are turning to TikTok and other social platforms to make sense of their mental health. Now, Janine Hubbard was on the show yesterday. She's a registered psychologist based in St. John's, and she was looking at a survey around this. And we talked a bit about that.
Unfortunately, it also means that they have been exposed to a lot of misinformation. While your favorite TikTok influencer or favorite celebrity may be out there speaking about their mental health experiences, and that's great if that encourages you to pick up the phone or to book an appointment, the information isn't always accurate.
Now, although the trend, as she said there, may be helping some young people get answers about their well-being and seeking help, is it blurring the line between empathy and accuracy? To weigh in this morning, our next interview is with Dr. Michelle Warren. She's in studio. She's a Winnipeg psychologist. He's done some research on the impact that screen time as well has on mental health, but she's with us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you say there's an upside and a downside, which is also what my yesterday's guest had said, to people turning to TikTok. Can you elaborate on your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really a mixed bag. It's quite common for us psychiatry types to want to hold on to, for good reason, the diagnostic process. For our fellow citizens, we want people to get good, accurate information. We don't want them to misunderstand symptoms or overdiagnose themselves and be disappointed later. If you find out that actually you don't have something like autism spectrum disorder or ADHD, you might have some symptoms of that, but not meet the threshold for that diagnosis. And so we want people to have accurate information, but I also really want people to just understand that it's okay to have a mental health problem. And if influencers, I'm not on TikTok, but I interviewed my 21-year-old about it, and she said, absolutely, if you see someone who looks like you and talks like you, who has a similar problem that you maybe haven't talked about yourself very much, then it's a good start. So it's such a mixed bag.
I wonder whether or not in your practice or in the profession you're seeing this creep in, because you named a couple things, ADHD and autism spectrum. Those seem to be anecdotally, from my perspective, sort of the tests that seem to come up where people self-diagnose. Tell me how much it's crept in.
Yeah, it definitely has. I've seen a shift where more people are asking us, or asking their parents, say in the case of young adults and teenagers, if they can go and see a psychologist or another mental health professional to get more information, and they're seeking a diagnosis. I've been around for almost 25 years as a psychologist, and 20 years ago, I think there was more stigma around psychological diagnoses, and people were avoiding them. Sometimes folks didn't want to be diagnosed, or their parents were really concerned about the label and what that might do to them. And there's been a shift, and probably a shift for the better. But again, it's a different situation when people come into the doctor's office or the psychologist's office and already think they have a diagnosis. I just always want people to stay open-minded and be curious about what's going on for them. For sure, if they're struggling, there's something going on.
Yeah.
And no matter what, we want to help with that. But meeting the specific criteria for a certain diagnosis, and having that assessed through a thorough interview process where you look at the big picture and the history of symptoms is really important. We can't expect lay people to be able to do that.
And that matters, of course, because then the things that follow could be, what your treatment plans are going to look like, what health professionals are in our system to deal with things as well, and where we need that. It's no different than physical health going,
Right.
having something wrong with your stomach and saying you have stomach cancer and walking into the doctor, and the doctor says, hang on a minute, could be
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
I wonder what conditions or illnesses show up most that people come in feeling that they are looking for a diagnosis.
Well, I think anxiety is still the issue that, really is plaguing young adults and older adolescents, and that the rates of anxiety and depression in young adults are higher post-pandemic than they were before. We're pretty clear about that in the research. And so if that's the case, if more people than ever are experiencing anxiety at an important developmental stage, young adulthood, where they're, making future plans and trying to find the energy and motivation to do hard things such as education or getting their career started, if people are feeling quite anxious and down about things, we want them to get help. And they're usually pretty spot on, I would say, if they have anxiety. That one is fairly easy to tell when you see someone else with anxiety talking about it. But it's those lesser known disorders like OCD or ASD where I think that sometimes people think that they have it because they see someone else who they can connect with and their story really resonates with them, when maybe they don't have it, particularly with, say, autism or ADHD, when they don't have the full they don't meet the full criteria. They don't have the entire problem. They don't understand all the different areas of your life that have to be affected to truly have the diagnosis.
And with anxiety, there's also anxiety, and then there's generalized anxiety disorder, which is specific, and then there's also different types of anxiety disorders as well.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to help them understand which specific kind they have. For example, social anxiety, there's a different treatment protocol that's more effective than general anxiety. And OCD has an altogether different treatment approach too.
So I'm just thinking about how we're talking here, and we're going to not be able to get into every detail of everything, and people are getting advice that's in 30 seconds online. So I'm just contrasting here. So how concerned are you about the quality of mental health information on social platforms? That's in these short bursts.
I'm open-minded about it and concerned. So both interested, increased awareness and validation that it's hard to be a human, especially a young adult or adolescent human right now in society. But I just don't want people to get too far ahead of themselves. I was thinking that maybe we could lighten the term diagnosis or self-diagnosis and think about a term more like identification. Like I'm identifying that I may or may not have a formal diagnosis, but for sure I'm struggling right now. And I feel more comfortable perhaps taking it to the next level, talking to my primary care provider, let's say about a referral, if I see someone online speaking really openly. Like hats off to the people who are willing to go on TikTok and talk about their mental health issues.
Yes. Yeah. So overall, I'm hearing that's still a net positive with some caution.
That's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah. In terms of, yesterday we were also talking with my guest that was looking at the survey results about Gen Z. She was also suggesting that we have a generation of young people that also may have missed some developmental milestones because they've had incredible times, for lack of a better term, through their developmental periods. I mean, the pandemic, just one of those things. So can sometimes that contribute to a generation that might look to their mental health and seek diagnosis, but in fact what can we do as a society then to fill the gap if it is more of a developmental challenge in terms of not having those experiences?
Well, thanks for asking, Marcy. I'm concerned about how much time people spend on tech, on their phones, and on social media instead of socializing in person. And I think that the advent of social media and cell phones and everyone carrying around their own electronic device on top of a worldwide pandemic where we were all told to stay indoors had a major impact on young people's mental health. So if we want to shift away from that, let's try to get off our phones. And of course, we're seeing a shift away from phones in schools in Manitoba. And let's socialize in person. What does it take to have more social spaces for young adults and teenagers. I'm really interested in that. Anybody who wants to, meet me at the local McDonald's where I used to loiter and get kicked out with my friends in high school, I'll go, because that's good for me to come here to the studio today and look at you in person and be able to have a little conversation before we went on air is precious time, right? It probably raises my mood even to get up in the morning, get out of the house early on in the day rather than stay at home and stay in my room doing school online or communicating with friends online.
I love that. More social spaces for young people. Thank you very much for coming in.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
That's Dr. Michelle Warren, Winnipeg psychologist. It is 8:24 a.m. We've got a bit of music to pick us up. This is Kelly Batto and Silver Lining.
Life is a show. Go with the flow. Life is a show. Go with the flow. Always running, always chasing, no time to rest. Life is busy, all the fight within your head. When you're trying to do your best, life is a show. Go with the flow. Life is a show. Go with the flow. All the noises, all the voices. Where's the money? Where you dreaming? All the times you told yourself you're so close, just do your best. If you find the rhythm, you can find your flow. Remember to count your blessings. Take it easy, take it slow. Don't forget to count your blessings. See the silver lining, take it slow. See the silver lining, the silver lining. See the silver lining, the silver lining. See the silver lining, the silver lining. All the choices, nothing's easy. No, the losses make you dizzy. All the grinding will be worth it. And all the sweating, never forget. Remember it all, the joy and the tears. When you find the silver lining, if you find the rhythm, you can find your flow. Remember to count your blessings. Take it easy, take it slow. Don't forget to count your blessings.
Kelly Batto, counting her blessings, and her tune called Silver Lining. She's going to be back in Winnipeg playing April 29th at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. She's currently on tour. She's having a big year. Her next show is actually in Estonia. Then she's back in Manitoba in April. She's also preparing for her first English debut EP, produced by three-time Grammy winner Chin and Jetty. It's 8:28 a.m. on 89.3 FM on CBC. It's -11, mostly cloudy, and Marjorie Dalhouse has popped in to talk about what the call-in is today, and it's something that I bet people are already thinking about.
Oh, yes. Gasoline prices. As we've been hearing on the news and on the show today, oil hovering around that $100 a barrel
How high
mark.
is it going to go?
Exactly. We've already seen prices jump in the United States by quite a bit. Countries starting to release some of those oil reserves. So we're going to talk about gas. Are you concerned about the price of gas? We're heading into the summer season when a lot of people do road trips, like to travel a little bit more. And, eventually we could see an impact on gas prices here. I know some prices went up a little bit. We're going to have Fletcher Berger from the University of Manitoba, from the Department of Economics, kind of break this down for us a little little bit and talk about gas prices, but not just gas prices. This is affecting commodities. We heard fertilizers going up. Everything that's going on in the Middle East is having an impact on a lot of the day-to-day items that we're using.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
So open up the phone lines between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, whether you're impacted at the pump, whether it's your business that's impacted, or as Marjorie said, those commodities. So you can weigh in on the call-in portion of Radio Noon. I want to thank those that worked on the morning show and information radio here on CBC. For today's program, associate producers Sophia Peralta-Barone and May McKillop, also reporter Jim Agapito. From our news department, Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Aaron Broman. Our on-air team, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash in our control room with our YouTube stream, and our producers in unit are Nellie Gonzalez, who produces the shows here in Current Affairs, and Leif Larson, who's the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Well, we are heading into 8:30 in our final newscast of the morning. Just a reminder, if we've had a decent drive, we do expect later it'll get blustery, but if you do need to report anything to Corey before the show wraps, 788-3093. Your Manitoba News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is minus 11 still. We are seeing some of that wind and some of that snow just beginning. We're going to see more wind, and a lot of it, and more snow as well. 2 to 4 centimeters in the forecast today with blowing snow as that wind increases. Our high today, -2, much cooler tomorrow. The Manitoba government says it is considering banning paid plasma clinics after a CBC investigation revealed 2 people recently died after donating plasma in Winnipeg. Health Canada says the company Grifols reported 2 different fatal adverse reactions. Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Eseguera says all options are on the table.
These organizations and companies that are for profit, they must be accountable to Manitobans, right? They can't just set up shop in our province and we see, bad outcomes or tragic outcomes happen and these companies not be accountable to that.
Health Canada is currently reviewing the deaths to find out if they are linked to plasma donation. Eseguera says the province will decide what to do once they get the results. The Union for Winnipeg Transit Drivers wants to see a pilot program that put police on buses made permanent. The city has released a report showing a decrease in total crime on buses of 15% during the 15-week pilot project. Violent crime dropped by 18%. James Van Gerwen is president of the Amalgamated Transit Union. He says his members noticed a difference.
Even just the deterrent of having them on the bus was enough to show public that there's actually a force now standing there to protect us or protect the public as well out there. So no, I think it was a success. And that was only for a few months.
Van Gerwen says continuing the program is a win-win prospect because more people will take the bus if they feel safe. Manitoba is asking Sobeys to drop the property restrictions blocking rival groceries from opening. It comes after a new provincial law to curb the use of these real estate deals signed by grocers, barring competitors from setting up nearby. Restrictions could only continue if they were registered with the province, and Sobeys was the only company to do that. Mike von Massow is a food economist at Guelph University. He hasn't spoken to Sobeys officials, but says the company probably doesn't want smaller competitors nearby because it could encourage customers to shop around.
With food prices higher, people are more willing to invest the time to go shop in other stores. And the closer it is, the easier that is to do.
Manitoba Public Service Minister Mintu Sandhu is asking Sobeys to lift their property controls voluntarily. The head of the Manitoba Nurses Union says the government's latest move to legislate nurse-patient ratios could solve the nursing shortage. But Darlene Jackson says it will take time to implement targets. Jackson says a committee turned over recommendations last December to the health minister for nurse-patient ratios in each health facility or unit in the province.
When you look at an acute medical unit, let's say at St. Boniface or Health Sciences Center, the types of patients and the acuity of the patients you're caring with in those 2 facilities may be quite different than a medical unit in the rural areas. So there may be a difference in numbers.
Jackson believes nurses who have quit will want to return to work once they have a controlled environment with reasonable patient loads. A Manitoba paramedic who was fired for refusing a call at the end of his shift has also been fined and had his license suspended. Matthew Chorney was working as a paramedic in West St. Paul in 2023 when he was notified of a 911 call about an 85-year-old woman who was choking and losing consciousness. He decided not to go to the call because there was less than 10 minutes left on his shift. He was only 3 minutes away from the woman's home, but a unit from Selkirk that was 19 minutes away ended up going after he declined the call. The woman was found suffering from respiratory distress and improved once she was taken to hospital. The College of Paramedics disciplinary panel found Chorney guilty of 5 charges, including professional misconduct. He was reprimanded and ordered to pay the $25,000 cost of the investigation. A woman in Souris is raising her 4th pride flag today after her 3rd one was stolen. Karen Kempe says it is frustrating and disappointing, but she says it motivates her to keep pushing for kindness and support for the 2S LGBTQ+ community. The theft comes after someone poured paint on the Souris Pride crosswalk last fall. Souris Mayor Dwayne Davison says the vandalism does not represent his community's true colors.
I don't feel that there's any reason for anybody to have any trepidation about putting a flag up. I'm saddened by the fact it kind of stains our image. We're a community of almost 2,000 people, and I would suggest there's a very, very small handful of people that are acting out like this.
For now, Kempe says she looks forward to celebrating Souris Pride in June. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Just some clarification from an interview with City Councillor Evan Duncan today about the city falling behind in terms of trying to be on pace for more housing to get funding from the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund. From a spokesperson for the City of Winnipeg, it correctly to meet this target, the units have to have permits issued. So the councillor had said being built, being completed, but it's not to be completed to access the funding. It's the permits have to be issued. So just a point of clarity, I think, in the conversation. And it's influenced by several things. So labor, as was discussed, but weather and builder priorities, but also more multifamily projects are part of the delay as well, we understand. So that from a spokesperson from the City of Winnipeg. All right, last quick look at things from Corey and Abby.
Might be a bit slippery between Portage la Prairie and Austin on Highway 1 today. Other than that, pretty clear.
Abby?
Expect travels to deteriorate quickly during your drive home this afternoon and the evening period as the snow will be whipping around in the Red River and Pembina Valley regions.
All right, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to our guests. Just another reminder that your Friday morning host is Mr. Corey Funk for the next 3 months. I'm going to be off doing some producing. So join Corey, Abby, and crew tomorrow for another edition of Information Radio here on CBC.